page 107.
They're all good with live streaming.
Yeah, I'll be back. I'm just checking my script. Is this where I'm up to?
Yes, yep, we're
Okay.
back to the.
5B, draft annual plan.
Yeah, you might want page 92 open, council, to page 92 on your agenda to help us through the next piece while we're just waiting for the live stream to come on.
Live streams go.
Is it on?
It's 85 of the agenda. So we've got some decisions to make. Why don't we just go straight to the table on page 92?
Through you, Mayor. So the Build Heritage Fund, as you're aware, provides grants to help conserve, restore and protect our city's heritage. For the last couple of years, it has been quite undersubscribed. So it's a part payment with predominantly individuals with their private houses, but also has been occasionally used outside of that, such as Christchurch and Taita. So this has been put forward as a saving. Will have some impact on individual landowners who have heritage buildings, but given with the need, because it is undersubscribed quite a lot over the last couple of years and the need to look for savings, we're putting it forward for your consideration.
Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Stellinger.
Yeah, just a question. I may have mentioned it informally previously, but I'll just ask it today. And there's certainly clearly a saving to be made here, because we could just reduce the amount that we're allocating, noting that the average over the past few years is 91,000. My question is, in light of the signals that have been sent through RMA reform that in future we may have to compensate landowners somehow for imposing heritage protection upon them, paraphrasing the government's words there, is what we have in front of us potentially a very low cost solution to that, which if we took it away, we might be expected to introduce something that could end up costing us a lot more than this. So I just wonder if it would be wise to keep it and reduce the amount rather than get rid of it.
I think you have a reserve, which we wouldn't be proposing to take away. We're not suggesting you don't need to build it up in the meantime. RMA reform will be what RMA reform will be, with the timetable that comes with it, and whatever shape councils are in at that time, and you might want to address that at a future moment. So it's your call.
When you say we have a reserve, we have some money in this fund available that we...
You have unspent money that you haven't used, so you don't need to add to it necessarily.
So the decision could be here to reduce it to zero and not add to it, but it doesn't mean that grant goes away. It's still available to... Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Stellinger.
My comment and question was going to be exactly as Councillor Mitchell's. I just wondered really whether it's, given the proposal in relation to this coming from central government, whether keeping an amount aligned with what we've spent in the past was a good option. So I was going to recommend that we drop it to 100,000 or 90,000, but I'm happy to go with the flow of the meeting on that.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. Just a question, how much is in the fund if we stop adding to it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at the moment, we've got your 208 just under 209,000 for next year, and then it drops to 160 for the remaining years of the long-term plan.
Assuming that we kept it at 200, or if we removed it.
Where are we? Just under 209 for
So we-
26, 27.
So if we cut the 200,000, it would be 9,000 for next year. Okay.
No more questions? Option 1, no change? Or option 2?
Can I move option 3, acknowledging it's been undersubscribed? I'd like to move option 3, that we halve it to 100,000 per annum. There's some significant changes and impacts on this through our district plan change. We've just consulted very heavily with our community about heritage, and noting that we took it out of our exemption, but there are still existing ratepayers that have heritage protections that use this fund. Also noting that the government has indicated we'll be needing to do more than this in the future, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, as our submission to the government said. But noting that it's been undersubscribed to 91,000 over the last 3 years on average, I would like to move that we drop it to 100,000.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't support it simply because this is a fund that we have always struggled to, it's undersubscribed. We end up trying to find people to get it. We've got a long trail of work to be undertaken, and at some point we've got to make some pretty strong decisions. And this one, just I support what Councillor Mitchell said, to bring it right down, but I don't support that we sit at 100,000.
Councillor Edwards.
Speaking in favour of the amendment, I believe we don't do very much towards heritage in our city. We've got some owners of some heritage buildings that many of them have volunteered that heritage status. I just checked with the chair of the District Plan Committee before. There is, understand, some clauses in our proposed district plan that speaks of this fund being available to help them. I think when a community through its district plan says, you know, this building, this house here, that's a heritage house, we like that. People like looking at it. We like to preserve our heritage, but all the costs are on you. You look after that. We don't want to know about it. We just don't want you to touch the outside of it. I think we need to make some provision, pretty minimal provision, to be able to support those homeowners. I do support it being cut in half. Hear what Councillor Brown is saying. We've got to find some savings, but I think a halfway house would be advisable on this one.
Councillor Mitchell.
Sorry, I'll go back over old territory. Can you remind me how much is currently in the fund? 200, it was 200? Roughly 200? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm happy to propose an option 4. Noting that there's 200 in the pot and it's undersubscribed and the average is 90, there's no need to top up the pot for the next 2 years at least.
The pot assumes that we are going to keep the 200 in there. It's currently 9. We put
I
in
thought
200 to get to 209.
we were told we had reserves.
Can I?
That's the pot I'm talking about.
So on page 109 of the agenda, it tells you that the current amount of money sitting in the fund is $209,000. Okay, so that amount is locked in there. And our usual process is, if it's underspent, we move it forward into the next year. So that'll be available depending on how many applications are processed during the year. And then if you look across to the next page, it shows you the future years' budgets that are sitting in there. And basically, so for 26, 27, 210,000, 27, 28, 170,000. So on average, it's looking at about 170,000 per annum going forward, plus a bit of an inflationary adjustment. So the total overall of the budget is 1.65 million currently sitting in our budgets. So I suppose if flowing that through, depending on where we land for current financial year, the 200,000, it's unlikely we'll spend all of that. Say we spend half of it, 100,000 is going to move into next year and be available for future. So if you were looking to put in 100,000 per annum going forward, you'd put it in from 2027, 28, you put 100,000 in per annum going forward in there. Okay.
Option
we're-
5, I like it. Yeah,
That actually was option 4, I should clarify.
no, she said it
But
better.
there's certainly no need to top up the pot this year, which is a rate saving for this year at least, and then it can be looked at again in terms of our long-term plan, but also in light of what the RMA lands on.
Okay, so we're going with option 3. 4.
Options, Jenny's option.
What that guy said. Option J.
And Mr Mayor, I'm going to declare a conflict as I've got a heritage listing house, so I'm going to step away from the vote.
So, Mr Mayor, if it helps, I'm suggesting what Jenny has just suggested, that there's no money put into this fund for the next 2 years, but from 2027, there's a $100,000. That was, well, let's do it, let's do it. I'm seconding Danny's. Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, can you make sure the right person gets the credit? We're all in favour? Take a division?
No, just a vote.
Just a vote? Okay, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Declare carried. Item 2, Petone projects.
Through you, Mr Mayor, at the recent elected members workshop, interest was expressed in reconsidering the allocations in this project based on the other competing priorities that council has for the annual plan and the long-term plan following that. And so this information is provided to enable you to do that. You'll see that 2 of the projects, the wharf and the hub, are currently in various states of procurement, and that has been paused so that this conversation can take place. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Tonga Grant.
Thank you. Oh, just thinking further ahead, I was wanting to know what longer term costs will specifically be for maintenance and the cost of other work connected to the wharf. Is that the one we're on to? Yeah.
We haven't worked through the detail of that yet, but there will be additional maintenance costs. There'll be cleaning, sweeping and other stuff, relatively low level at this point, but certainly will be ongoing costs, but we couldn't give you an exact figure at this time.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just as a follow-up to that, though, there was, as part of the procurement, a commitment that there'll be no major maintenance required on the wharf, that it will be repaired to such a state that actual major maintenance on the wharf will not be required for, I think it was 25 or 30 years.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, the design is for 25 years. I mean, there will be still vandalism probably. There may well be breakdowns or storm damage and so on and so forth. So, you know, there will be some costs in that area as well. Plus there'll also be the ongoing cost, depreciation, all the rest of it that comes with it.
Can I just add to that, please? On page 117 of the agenda, you'll see that there is the Petone Wharf budgets are detailed in there, and the operational budget going forward is $290,000 per annum. So it's a small, relatively minor budget for things like, you know, reactive maintenance works that were just mentioned.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. The submission that from Sylvia Allen highlighted the omission of Petone Wharf in the commentary about not being having heritage value. It wasn't in the report. Was this aspect overlooked, or, you know, what's it going to do for the impact of the project?
First, I'll let Arthur answer on that, but I would also say There's been a lot of information come in front of council around Petone Wharf over a long period of time. A lot of it is publicly available. You've got a very small template there that represents just some core information for you to start a conversation around this thinking. So certainly all of the information on the wharf is not in that template, but it's assumed that a lot of it is actually known.
Just adding to what Andrea said, this has been going on for a while, and yes, Heritage were involved right the way through this process. As I say, we're here, I think, really because there was the decision to hold this, but all the information has been covered. Various reports, have been done on this. So we are in a position to either move forward or not. We just need to know the decision whether we do or not.
Deputy Mayor Brown, then Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. Can I just suggest that we split, because that's under Petone projects, that we split them off, so that, because then we don't just get subsumed with the wharf, then we'll go on to the library and the grandstand. And then we can vote on it, then vote on it, then vote on it.
Councillor Shaw.
I just want to add to what Sylvia Allen brought up in her public comment, and it was about the potential that it could end up in court if we proceeded down the demolition path because of a lack of a heritage value. Is that a possibility?
As we move into the second stage, and even the first stage to some extent, if we get sufficient people against it, then yes, it could quite easily end up in Environment Court or a number of other courts. More likely when we start doing the demolition.
If I might just add to that, as a public body, all of our decisions are open to judicial review. Did we take a decision reasonably? So that's the risk we run every time that's there. And I think what Sylvia was signalling, that they are ready, willing and able to do that. So I think you were put on notice.
Councillor Ravi.
With the 12 million allocated currently, and what Roger this morning was talking about, the new engineering methodology, do we think that we can restore it within that budget?
The whole purpose of this project is to produce a scalable product, which means we can scale it up or we can scale it down. So the chances of exceeding the 12 million, if we were to go ahead, would probably be pretty low. But then again, natural hazards, other stuff, who knows? But in general terms, it would be unlikely that would go over because we'd just do more or less of the wharf as necessary.
I think is that they're all a capped budget. And so with other projects, if they were going to cost more, then it might come back to council for another decision. These are a capped budget, and so essentially it will be $12 million, and we will build what we can for that money.
Councillor Young.
Kia ora. I have a series of questions. I'll start with the wharf. On page 111, in that third paragraph, in that final sentence, Mana Whenua expressed an interest in partnering in this development to drive economic and cultural outcomes. Have we had any further discussion or heard more about that? Or can you elaborate on that?
The reference there is from a presentation that was made at the last, I think it was the long-term plan hearings that was Taranaki Whānui came and talked there. More recently, there have been conversations with our Mana Whenua partners ahead of this conversation. Should I update on those, or Joe, did you want to update on those?
We had, and I'm sure Councillor Tiawa Puketapu will speak when it comes to debate, we discussed the TOM report that you've just considered and the annual plan at our hui with Mana Whenua over the last week. Their view, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but in essence in those hui, they were clear that they were interested in investment, significantly activating that area around access to the beach, around water sports, and a future focused look at those assets rather than one that relied on an industrial heritage. I think I've put that as delicately as I can.
I've still got a few questions, sorry, if that's all right. On page 114, can I just clarify, so it talks about the demolition figure at 5 million. Has that lessened from previous conversations, or is it just me imagining it? Asking my
I think that figure is still not known because we haven't scoped that, but originally I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago we were talking about 6 million, and more recently through the work we've done it's changed to 5, but the actual number's not known.
Mr. Mayor, do you have an approved minute from the Hui with Taranaki whānui, if you'd like me to read that out, if that's helpful? Bear with me, colleagues, it's on my phone. PNBST trustees would need to think through views on the Petone Wharf and money being spent on a moribund asset in the context of the opportunity presented by Te Hone Tupunia Reserve. There may be a more robust way of council using the money currently set aside for the wharf, which could be applied to that reserve, which is set up and paid for by NZTA. There's an opportunity to deploy resources there and leverage this new asset for a multiplicity of benefits. And so they asked us to share that with you. The minutes with the 10th has not been yet approved, but in essence, that was where the minute talked about more opportunity for tourism, not necessarily the wharf, to talk about access to the waterfront and Wakaama. Thank you.
No more questions? We need...
Yeah, I do have a couple more questions if that's okay. So in terms of the hub, I know that we've heard concerns around whether or not 5 million... We're going to do wharf. Oh, do wharf first? Do I have another wharf question? Let me just double check, sorry.
Do you have number one on the wharf?
Okay, no more wharf questions. Is there any debate?
Are you putting forward a motion, or would you like something from the floor?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I'd like to start by saying I would like to move option number 1. The first question I've asked myself is what has changed since this previous council decided twice unanimously for the current position we are in. I think we need to go back in time a little bit and remind ourselves of the previous decision-making processes we've been through. The previous council had 2 options in front of it, full refurbishment or demolition. We at that stage decided to go with proposing full demolition, which we consulted on, and then following very strong public opposition, which we've seen only a glimpse of today, we met the community in the middle, securing $12 million in the budget to do as much as possible that was possible within the $12 million. And I made it clear then there'll be no more money beyond 12. We will do what we can within that, which we've heard today is still the proposed approach. This brought us a lot of public goodwill, meeting the community in the middle. I think even just as being back on the table today has eroded some of that goodwill. So I'm more than happy to support that we stick with our proposed option, which is option 1 on the papers in front of us today.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Councillor Parkin. We're in debate, yeah. Councillor Stellinger.
I was thinking to second that too, but if that's not the case, I'll just make a fairly brief comment. I agree with the comments of Councillor Dyer, and my own view, or something that sticks strongly with me, I think I've expressed it privately to councillors, but I'll just repeat it here, that I think in 10, 15 years' time, when the foreshore is, I expect, far more vibrant and visited than it is now, I don't want to be remembered as the council who voted to demolish the Petone Wharf. And so that sticks in my mind and a reason why I would vote for option 1.
Councillor Edwards.
I think I remember saying in this debate a year ago that I was on a knife's edge about whether we should save Petone Wharf or not. Well, I'm now on a razor blade and tipping over in favour of saving it. I'll say first that the reasons why we shouldn't do this, and just maybe an answer to some of those people who came along and talked to us today as to what's changed since 12 months ago. Well, we all know what's changed. We've got Te Aki Wai telling us quite clearly, or Wellington Water telling us, and soon to have a new body telling us quite clearly, they will be increasing their charges year on year on year to deal with underinvestment in our water infrastructure. So our ratepayers, even though we won't be sending the bill, will be getting, on average a 12% increase every year. We've been told by our officers that one of the chief ways we can get our costs down is to reduce our number of assets, which has ramifications in terms of depreciation, insurance, and the cost of servicing debt. So they're all the reasons why we should demolish that wharf. The reasons, I've got a list of about 12 reasons here, what gets me just over the line. And some of them have already been mentioned, but amalgamation on the horizon is one. Those 2 cycleways coming there, that's a natural focal point for lots more people to meet. When I weigh up the wharf in terms of an amenity value, how many people seem to enjoy being there versus some of our other assets, even some of our swimming pools, the wharf is a very popular asset. And if we have to reduce amenities, is that the amenity to get rid of? Not sure. $5 million to even demolish the thing. So we're actually talking about $7 million. I don't know, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Councillor Pukitapu, then Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. This wharf has been the decision that's kept me up all night and actually probably all week. And I just want to acknowledge everyone that's come to speak today about the wharf, but also those to the people who have been emailing us over the course of the last few weeks, expressing their plea to keep the wharf. And I know what the Petone Wharf means to the community. I know it holds memories of fishing and gathering for people, and it carries a lot of stories as well. But long before the wharf was built, this place was already a significant place. Petone was where Te Atiawa established themselves. It's where our tipuna lived. It raised their whānau. It shaped our identity of this valley. That history does not live in the timber of the wharf alone. It lives in the whenua, in the harbour, and in us. And as Māori, we're taught the principle of kaitiakitanga, the responsibility to care for what has been entrusted to us and to ensure our decisions strengthen the well-being of future generations. And kaitiakitanga is not just about holding on, it's also about making wise decisions with the resources that we have. We've been asked to spend $12 million on restoring a structure that no longer serves its original purpose. And at the same time, our communities face real pressures on housing, on infrastructure, and on the places that people use every day. So this is not about turning our backs on the past. This is about our history and identity that do not depend on the one structure. They're carried in our people and in our whenua and our continued presence here. There are places in our city that are alive with activity, places where our people are returning, reconnecting, and building their future. And we have an opportunity to invest in that living future. And our responsibility is to ensure that decisions we make today strengthen the pathway forward for the generations who will follow us. And in conversations with mana whenua, and to respond to what you were saying, Kay, as asking earlier, they're very similarly aligned with the views that I've shared today. So for that reason, and with respect for what the wharf represents, and noting I wasn't on the previous council, I can't support that level of investment for that wharf.
Kia ora, Councillor Pukitapu. Well spoken. Councillor Barrett.
Councillor Pukitapu has just virtually said in her own language what I was feeling, so thank you.
Councillor Ravi, then Councillor Tonga Grant.
I just wanted to support what Brady had mentioned, Councillor Brady had mentioned, but also just emphasize that it is an intergenerational sentiment. It is not just one generation. It's been there for so many generations, and people are have carried so many memories, and it has a potential to become a huge tourist attraction, and it is one of the iconic places in Petone, which also carries a heritage value. So it is, for all of those reasons and what we have heard this morning, I'm supportive of keeping it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this has also been one of the things that had spent a lot of time speaking with community and praying over. But, you know, we've just said yes to adjusting the sales. And so I have been doing some thinking about what does that mean for me, and that means momentum, it means movement, and it means moving forward. After listening to all the public comment this morning, one of our speakers had said, had made mention to kia whakatō muri te haere whakamua, and for me it doesn't mean look back and do the same thing. It means look back and how can we change or make things better for the journey ahead. And so this has been a hard decision or hard thing to think over, but I'm coming back to one of the things that I stood for when standing for council, and that's people over profit. And so my thoughts are that we don't go ahead and refurbish the wharf, because we also heard about people from Petone, from Jackson Street, who were talking about hard times and how much things are costing and rates are going up. And so then how can we then turn around and put this money there when there are people and livelihoods who are already struggling? And so, yeah, that's probably one of my thoughts I would like to put out there is, how are we adjusting our sales? Do we want to continue to do the same things, or are we going to look back at the things that have happened and learn from those and think about how moving forward we're going to support our future generations? And yeah, more memories can be made in other spaces as well, but as Councillor Pukitapu has mentioned, the memories and history doesn't just live in the timber, but in the significant space that is there and the natural resources as well. And so for me, that's where I stand.
Councillor Shaw, then Deputy Mayor Brown.
It's been several years of intense discussion, engagement, numerous meetings, briefings, workshops, and a petition. And I just want to acknowledge the officers for all the work that's been put in, particularly on the Petone projects. I also want to acknowledge the community that have stood up to as well. It's a heritage piece. It's a piece of iconic hut history. It's actually a shared space for all of Te Awa Kairangi ki Tai, not just Petone. I've spent many happy times down there on that beach. I understand the current fiscal environment. It's really challenging. But I just don't feel right on going back on a promise we made to that community not that long ago. And it was made clear as for those who were there, part of that decision today. So rather than having a loss of faith with that community, I just feel that my decision will be to keep the wharf.
Deputy Mayor Brown.
First, I'd like to thank the officers for the work. I also want to acknowledge the people that came in today. They're people that I highly respect, especially the key leaders of this whole campaign. Very thoughtful, very thorough, and they are right in coming back and talking to us. I think this decision is particularly hard for the councillors that were around the table. I think this has turned into a conscience vote. And it is that people just need to vote where they sit. I'm not just going to point out the wharf, but when it comes to us setting the rates, and we have, and many people have talked about rates, reducing rates, and that's a core principle because the cost of living and people are doing it tough. When we're struggling with that, are we really at 9.5%, down from 16%? At some point, we have to make hard decisions, and hard decisions is what we are tasked with at the table. And I say that now, I'm not just highlighting the wharf, it's just a principle that we've got for the annual plan and then the TOM on how we readjust. So I acknowledge this is going to be the hardest decision to make, particularly for the councillors who were in the earlier triennium. I remember when I first came in, we had not a similar decision actually. This one is harder, but we had nearly committed 5 million to a tennis group that was going to impact positively a lot of people, but that's set in stone, a relook at how we distribute funding across the sporting area. So this is a hard decision. I acknowledge that.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell.
Oh, kia ora. I was one of the councillors who was part of making that previous decision, and we've heard from a lot of people today, but we heard from a lot of people back then, and we consulted broadly our community. We heard some opinions from our officers, and we heard the view of iwi then too, and at that time we made a decision to side with the community and invest in keeping Petone Wharf. In my opinion, there's not a decision in front of us today whether to save Petone Wharf, because that was done back then by us and mostly by them at the back of the room. Our decision today is whether to now unsave Petone Wharf and go back on that earlier decision. And certainly the horizon is changing in terms of what we see coming to us through simple cost of living pressures, but also through, again, government directions. So the TOM is certainly, as I've already said, a very valuable tool for us to make strategic decisions as we move forward. I think one thing, I already think about the TOM is that it doesn't signal a future for our city with no new things. We just have to make difficult decisions. And nor does it signal a future for our city with no old things. We don't have to get rid of all the stuff we've got just so we can get some new things in there. We need to make decisions about whether we invest in new things like Honiana Tapuni Reserve, but it doesn't have to be by getting rid of things we've already committed to. One thing about changing headwinds is that you do have to adjust your sails, and another thing I guess you have to do is steady your resolve, and I think that's what the community is asking us to do today, is not see the headwaters and turn the boat around and go back home. That some of us made a decision more than once previously, and I'm quite prepared to stand by that decision. And we have already done work to reduce rates, as has been mentioned, from 16 to 9.5% increase in this coming year. That's based on decisions and actions that have already been made and taken, not including deciding not to invest in Petone Wharf, and most people in this room have expressed comfort in the level we've got to already. So I'm certainly committing today to the decision that was made previously by this council, acknowledging that there are many other decisions that will come before us. Some of them will be difficult decisions as well, but one of the things we always need to do is listen to our community. We are elected to represent them in the decisions we make at this table.
Councillor Young.
Kia ora. I want to reiterate my gratitude to those who have sent us emails, those that showed up today. I think it's really significant, and I definitely hear those sentiments, particularly of those who have been on this journey of the conversation around the wharves for a very long time. even reflecting on this decision in itself, I was reflecting on pretty much my whole entire local government life, which has been about a decade now, has been with Wharves. Not why I got into local government, but there you go. And yesterday, I had the pleasure to be able to be at the All of Local Government meeting, and at the very end, they finished with Paul Snellgrove from Transit Group. So if you don't know, and this is relevant, they've been on a 100-year journey with their business. But one of the things that he said to me that really struck me was that a huge part of how they got to 100 years was they were thinking in decades. And I think it's really, really easy when we've got all these pressures, particularly externally, to kind of, I think, withdraw or retract or not be able to hold that resolve. And so for me, I've actually had to pause from a lot of the noise, because it is noisy, right? When we hear from so many different people, and actually I could count the same amount of people who are not wanting it to the people who do want it. Only difference is who shows up in the room. And so for me, a huge part of actually thinking in decades for me is actually being able to think, where would I love to see our city be in 10, 20, 50, 100 years' time? And for me, a huge part of that is actually still holding some of our history and hopefully redefining some of it, because, if we even think about the history of the wharf, frankly, as a vegetarian, I'm not that excited by gear meat. So, there's this thing that I often think about, that it's not just about the right here and right now, but the benefits and the potential and the possibilities that I think can exist with other things that we've discussed and other perspectives, because there is a really long stretch of our harbour. There's a lot of stories within that space, and my hope is this is just one part of the ever-increasing pockets that hopefully I will see in decades to come in my lifetime. So I'll be supportive of option 1. Kia ora.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Really hard decision for everyone today. It's been hard for me the last 15 years I've been in this council. This is one of the hardest ones. I just want to thank everybody for... I didn't want this item on the table right at the start, and I have notes everywhere of what I'm going to say, but the item being on the table has now shown me that you have all listened. You've listened to the community. You've listened, and firstly, you've seen what a community does when they advocate for something they care about, or reverse of. They came in again and again, and they are rallying. This community, especially the new community organisation, has identified that they want to work and encompass this council in everything that the community cares for. And it is the things in Petone that matter. It's our heritage. We see an economy around that heritage and around the place and identity that's already there. And we see, in working with iwi, who sat at the table with the Petone 2040 group to share what they wanted down at the beach as well, and it was a shared vision. We can involve, it is about involving iwi in the vision they have and working with the structures that are there. And it's being, strategic in how we see this whole investment for our city. And I think we haven't looked at that for Petone. It is the jewel in our Hutt City crown. It draws people, and building on this, keeping and enhancing our heritage and the new areas that we're working with iwi is only going to grow the city and give it a better front door. It's going to be marvellous. So I'm going to support option 1 for the wharf. And thank you to our community.
Anyone else? I think we're all capable of reading the room in terms of where we're at. Just a few observations I'd like to make, some of which has already been said. It's a very difficult position for those of you who previously supported the Petone Wharf to walk back on that decision. And, all of the things that we value in life about honour and integrity and loyalty, absolutely 100%. Understand and support you all in that position. As you know, I wasn't part of previous discussions or previous decisions. So I guess I don't feel the same kind of pressure or connection, given the fact I hadn't made previous obligations. But I did run in the campaign on the basis that we would be a careful, considered, frugal council in the event that I would be sitting where I am today. It's not lost on me that our projected revenue, just a reminder, is 308 million, and our projected expenditure is 358 million. The emphasis and scrutiny that's on all our public bodies about the importance and significance of getting back to basics. The rates capping, regardless of whether it becomes a reality in terms of the numbers they expect, are all messages from parts of our community that are, to me, an indicator of what kind of leadership that they expect. And as far as I'm concerned, we're just gonna trust the process, and if that process is option one, then it is to be option one. But I'll just remind that for every action, there's a reaction. The target operating model was deliberately to address the challenges that are in front of all councils. And when I said before that reading the room, clearly the Petone Wharf is going to go ahead, but this is going to be one of many decisions that we are going to face. We would have taken, to be honest, I think we would have taken a lot of pressure off ourselves if we voted to stop the wharf. But we will respect the process and democracy, and I'm happy for that to go ahead as a resolution. Do we, Kate? Is that what we do? So we're asking
Chair,
who's in favour of option
Chair,
one?
Before you put the motion, is the mover, could I please have a right of reply?
Sure.
Thank you. It's worth reminding ourselves that this is a capital expenditure project, that it will save a fraction of a % on our rates. Demolition has a cost, a very large cost, and one that we've heard that once it starts, it's an unknown, it's not scalable like the $12 million. Cool, I'll continue. Not doing the wharf is not saving us $12 million. Demolition costs millions too and has very little impact on future rate impacts. Restoring the structure that brings more people to an area that can still have mana whenua stories told better alongside it, for me, is a win for both. We are spending nearly $500 million between us and NZTA on two amazing new shared pathways around Te Whanganui-a-Tara. The focal point of these two assets for our community is the Esplanade. These shared pathways aren't just for the lycra-clad commuters, though I hope they use them. It is for the mums and dads getting out there. It is for the elderlies on their e-bikes. We have such a huge opportunity to make the Great Harbour Way an outstanding facility to bring domestic tourism to Lower Hutt and provide a really cheap activity for families using these new pathways. The Petone Wharf is such a key part of our offering because it is such a key part of our harbour. I urge those of you that are on the fence to support option one, and as Councillor Stallinger said, let's not be remembered as the council that demolished Petone Wharf. I would like to call that the decision is taken by division.
Okay, Kate will just put it up, option one. So there's no change. All those in favour?
By division.
I usually call it out, as usual.
Okay.
Yeah. So all those for Mayor Ken Laban?
No.
Against? Deputy Mayor Kerry Brown? Councillor Glenda Barrett? Councillor Brady Dyer?
For. Could you please use microphones?
Cheers.
I'll report the result at the end, Councillor Dyer. Councillor Edwards? Councillor Tui Lewis? Councillor Andy Mitchell? Councillor Chris Parkin? Councillor Tiawa Pukatapu? Councillor Barabaravi,
For.
Councillor Naomi Shaw, Councillor Tony Stallinger, Councillor Mele Tonga Grant, Councillor Kaz Young. That motion's carried, Mr Mayor.
Declare the motion carried.
You've got two more Petone wants to do, the library and the grandstand. And we'll need lunch at some point as well, but should we do Petone and then have lunch?
Okay. Shall we do these next two and then have lunch?
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, the same situation with the hub. There was interest in revisiting the Petone projects, and that's why that's on the table today. And procurement has been paused while that happens. And we do have online our Head of Neighbourhood Hubs and Library Services, Jo Ransom, should she be required for any questions.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I have a question, and I guess partly it's in light of this decision that's just been made, because we did certainly begin this conversation with an envelope of money. And it's with regards to the fact that the paper mentions the need for value engineering under the current plan, which essentially means what we plan to do is unaffordable. So in light of the decision that has just been made, do officers have a recommendation for the library in terms of whether we should proceed and value engineer it or review the project altogether?
Officers' most recent recommendation on this was for the LTP, which we did when we were setting the current LTP. And that recommendation was to, as part of the project, invest $10 million in the library, because it was felt that that was what was needed to either renew the asset or to provide the opportunity to go into partnership with someone, and we could co-invest to create some other kind of multi-purpose asset that would serve a number of community needs. And that was the view of officers then, and that's the view of officers hasn't changed. The LTP allocated $5 million, and the project has been about scoping what is possible for that $5 million. And so where we sit currently, we are working through what can be delivered, and if it gets to the point where it's no longer, well, the building would not remain open with what we're investing, then we would come back to council again. But what is happening is a repair to ensure that it can stay open now, not a renewal, which is actually what it needs.
So we're talking about the hub, it's an option 1 or option 2? Councillor Stallinger.
I've heard some comments, I can't quite remember whether it's expressed in here or directly from the Chief Executive, that there's an overlap in terms of timing of when we might wish to do things because of work that will be required on the central library. And that if works were going on in Petone and we had to temporarily close the central library at the same time, that would be more problematic. And perhaps the suggestion was we just needed to keep the library open in Petone for that period, and then if anything more significant was to happen, to pick that up afterwards. Now, I guess I'm just testing, is that the case, or could it be expressed more clearly than I've done?
There is a program of work that has a staged approach to our facilities. Currently, the focus is on Petone, and when that's done, it will be, the current plan is, when that's done, it will be War Memorial next for a significant seismic strengthening and a number of other works, and that would see it closed for up to a year. And there is a plan around how we transfer staff around as those various facilities close, and how we serve the community as those various facilities are closed. I think in terms of planning, the challenge that we have at the moment is the condition of Petone, is that we are managing a number of different issues there. We're managing the fact that we have the timber columns in the atrium are not structurally sound and are being propped up at the moment. And we have netting out to catch the glass off the atrium just in case there was a seismic event, because that's also not in a good state. We have the part of the building, the first floor is closed and you can only go in there with PPE on. And there are concerns about some other parts of the building where we're having regular air testing done, both to determine whether they should be closed off or whether it's safe for our staff to still be there. So it's in a, the thinking was these things could be managed through until the project started, and the project's now underway. If we were to prolong it any further, there's a high likelihood that the building would close, particularly once we get into winter and we get some more extreme weather that threatens the structural integrity of that atrium. Or other parts of the building may close.
Councillor Edwards, then Councillor Young.
Very quick question, Andrea, what other than the library staff, what staff do we still have in that wider building?
Currently, it's only hub and library staff, and so we did have heritage services there, but we've moved them up to Walton Ash, so that's no longer based there. They are, Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the only staff that are there. Oh, well, and we run the New Zealand Post agency from there, but that is run by hub and library staff.
So follow-up question, would it be possible to keep the library going, if necessary for safety reasons, take down that atrium and mothball the rest of the building while we explore more longer-term options for that library?
There are other options like that we could explore. I guess one of the challenges with that is they would all use up budget. And so the budget that was available would diminish. I think the other thing is and what was discussed at the workshop, I think, was around the fact that we have the target operating model now, which suggests that we are pretty well served for hubs and libraries. And so as part of the further consideration of this, you'd be considering, in the context of the long-term plan and the context of the target operating model, what's the future for this building?
Councillor Young.
Kind of following up from some of the questions that other councillors have raised, but recognising that Joanne's on, has there been any significant changes, I guess, to programs or the needs from the communities, from the local community for that hub in particular? I'm just recognising a year, especially when there's lots of disruption, can actually create a lot of change, and I'm already aware that some groups have kind of found new homes that sometimes use that space.
Yeah, the bookable spaces have been are no longer available. So that is the most significant change, is that the community cannot use the space for their own uses.
And I have a second follow-up question around, I guess, exploring some of those different options. And I know previously, in my previous life on the community board, we kind of talked about some of those avenues, kind of exploring potentially the similar model in Mangaraki, but also I noted that the Moira Library was another option in terms of that build. I think size would be a different conversation, but I'm just curious to know if there's been any thought around how much that might cost or what the look of that would be.
There hasn't been as yet because this has just come, the project's in procurement and we're about to get underway. So, but certainly in the past there was the proposal that was put up to the LTP. There were a number of things that were considered there, including the local partnership, including making a really resilient building that could also operate as an emergency centre in Petone, which we don't have currently, to the right IL4 rating that could be raised up off the ground so that actually when a lot of things in Petone are flooding, this wouldn't flood and other people could move their people or services there if they needed to. And around, as you said, the kind of building in Moira, that's definitely, now that we've done that in Moira and had a really great result there of a low-cost, sustainable, relocatable building, that's certainly something we would look at as well now, but we haven't because this project's in train.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora through you, Mr Mayor. Just wondering if officers have considered the impact of Alicetown Community Centre. Obviously, we haven't made that decision, which is going to make life really difficult. But if, for example, we chose not to rebuild Alicetown Community Centre, would we be able to what impact would that have on the decision that we're making at the moment in terms of facilitating those community groups that would then be displaced?
I think given the number of factors in play, we can't really comment on that, particularly given as well what we know around our own work program and War Memorial Library as well. But what I guess the kind of contextual comment I would make is that through the asset review and now through the target operating model, Council has recognised that it needs to reduce the number of assets it has, and some of that will be about strategy and some of that will be around opportunity, and the Alicetown one is one that's come about through opportunity, and the idea is that we reduce the number of assets that we have and we optimise our existing assets. So we believe we have other assets that are not optimised, and that would mean that everybody doesn't necessarily get to have their own place or have it where they would necessarily like it, but that there would be a shared place for everyone's activities.
Councillor Mitchell.
I'm getting a sense around the room that elected members are interested to learn what other options there are other than the one we agreed to previously in the long-term plan, particularly noting that that option is now unaffordable and needs to be value engineered. So with that in mind, what's a way forward for us that, by the sound of things, involves putting the current procurement on hold, but where to from there if that was the decision? Because all we've been asked to do today is either agree to the status quo, which sounds like not a very good option, or think about it. And there's no other options in front of us. So what's an option that would involve not proceeding with the current planned investment and looking at other options?
So officers could go and do some work on that and look back at some work that I've done previously, but also new thinking, and look back through the community workshops that we had, which provided a lot of good ideas as well. And so we could bring forward some ideas. You would consider that then, I'm thinking in the context of the long-term plan against other priorities and in the light of the target operating model. In the interim, the project would be stopped and there would be probably a high likelihood that the building would close in the interim because of the health and safety issues there. But it would be a managed closure rather than, at the moment, we are ready for an instant closure should a test come back, a negative test come back on air quality, but it would be it would give us the opportunity to do a planned closure.
And would that have to be a complete closure, or we close off the dangerous bits and keep the library open as long as humanly
Depends
possible?
what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends. And it could be that we close off other parts, but there comes a time where, yeah.
Through you, Chair, that there is some recommendations that you've put, if it helps put them up now, that responds to that situation.
Councillor Dillinger.
Yeah, thank you again for those recommendations. They sound like the best way forward that I could imagine. I'm just, in the circumstances we have, I'm interested a little bit more on recommendation 3, because it's quite a blunt comment. Would there be consideration given to a temporary, smaller facility somewhere in Petone during that closure period, or what would be the likely outcome?
So the current plan is to look at other ways of delivering services in Petone, and there's a number of ways you could do it, including we have close neighbours who have mobile libraries, we have partnerships with other organisations who might be able to help us with that, or we could look for pop-up opportunities like Wellington did.
I wonder if members would think it would help to just add a few words to recommendation 3 to not make it sound like there's just would be no service in Petone for an indefinite period. Just to say something like options will be looked at for a temporary
Well, you
service.
could take it out. I mean, whether you note it or not, it's a fact. So it was more to let you know. As I say, I suppose we put that under 3. The reality is, if it was due to close, we would need to report to you. And as Andrew's indicated, it could close tomorrow in a storm in any event.
I mean, I think what Councillor Stellinger is asking for is some additional words, but that temporary premises will be sought in the interim or something like that. I think that's what you're asking for, right? So people of Petone who aren't listening to this meeting might see this writing and go, yeah, you know.
You might say, at which point temporary services may be considered. Because you might decide not to do that, but if you're saying you will give it consideration.
Oh, I still had mine on. Yeah, I just wonder whether saying will be considered, it doesn't mean they will be delivered rather than may. It's saying we might think about just changing that one word. I think it would be good.
If I could just make one other comment on this recommendation, it doesn't make any reference to the budgetary decision that's in front of us today. I guess it's assumed that it's the status quo, that the budget line remains, but it feeds into future work. Or I don't know. I'm looking to you, Jenny, for what we might need to say about the budgetary decision in front of us.
On this basis, we would just keep the budget as is, no change at this point. There's lots of uncertainty as to where we're going with this, so I think that's probably the safest option. I don't want us to be trying to anticipate what the next steps are. I think we're comfortable with it being silent, yeah.
Councillor.
Thank you. Just had to remind myself, and so I'm kind of doing it in case others are thinking the same as me, that we're signing off the draft today. This is going to go out for public consultation. We will hear from our community what they think. I support the intent of the recommendations. I just hope we can translate that into the consultation document so that we're asking the right questions, that when we're back here in a month, 2 months' time, actually making the decisions, it's really clear what the community thinks. Because as it reads now, it's kind of like we need to spend more. So the question might be, do you want us to spend more on Petone Library? When I think the read around the room is we kind of want to see what we can do within that budget. Whereas sort of passing it to the long-term plan for additional funding, as the recommendation says, to me reads as we'll need additional funding in the long-term plan, which is what recommendation 1 says. Can we put back on the screen? Sorry, Kate.
I think, Councillor Dyer, if I may, as we just indicated, the money would stay in the budget. It's an obligation on us as officers to let you know that the money that we didn't think was enough in the first place is now demonstrating that it's not enough, and it will only affect a repair. And as soon as you do it, you'll need to spend more money, putting a lift in, doing other things. It's incumbent upon us to give you that information as governors making decisions. So we're not suggesting removing the money. We're saying, do you really want to spend public money on this? Whilst recognising that this could close, in a storm at any time. We'd need to consider what we could do in the short term, whilst in the long term, picking up the total provision we do through library and hubs, through the TOM that we've done. So we're not going to the community saying, do you want us to spend more money? Because remember, this was are you confirming the decision you already made, or are you doing something slightly different?
If everyone's happy, move on a second. I'll move. Just Councillor Mitchell, second. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Grandstand, Tony Grandstand, before lunch.
Again, we're happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I was certainly pleased to hear that Petone Rugby were keen to get on with a divestment conversation. I was just wondering if that was news to you as well. It seemed to be a new announcement, but
There have been a number of conversations happening, and the club have not formally committed to that, but they certainly are keen to see what they can do, and as part of that, they're keen to look at what community support they can get, including other funding sources. So I think we've not got a commitment, but we've got a positive conversation.
Thank you. And just in terms of one of the issues was seismic strength. Has the government's redefinition of seismic issues had any influence over what could be done with that grandstand?
No, we looked in at an advice we got from our structural engineer is given it's made of heavy metals and it's it's 3 stories, that it wouldn't make any difference. So it's just same sort of process we need to go through. But as Andrea said, that is a more positive response. So.
Okay, if there's no more questions, you'll put that up. Yeah. Option 1 or 2. Right. Step 1's the status quo. Good. Mover in a second. Councillor Mitchell, the mover. Deputy Mayor Brown, seconder. All those in favour?
Sorry, I wanted to speak against.
Those against?
Well, sorry, I wanted to speak. Just reminding ourselves, option 1 is divestment. If they don't take it, we demolish it. I'm happy for the first part. I would like it to come back to us if we're not doing the second part. Yeah, it's got to be one step, I think, at a time, which is continue the conversations with Petone Rugby Club about divestment. If that doesn't go ahead, then come back to us.
Any asset that council is divesting needs a council decision.
Any further debate? It's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. To have lunch? Till 2 o'clock?
Question, Mr Mayor. If none of those options for Petone have changed, are we going out to annual plan consultation again? Why does it have to go out again?
You've already had, I think in December you had a paper that said that we were doing annual plan-like consultation. The decisions that, if a decision is the same as the decision that was there before, then we'll simply be saying that you'll see the annual plan consultation. You can be confident that it reflects your direction of travel in terms of what's light and what's not a decision and what is a decision. We'll go with the process. Is that okay?
Turn our attention to item 3, community funding panel projects, and just note the absence of Deputy Mayor Brown. Thank you. Community funding panel, page 9 to item 3.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is another of the matters that came out of the workshop that elected members wish to consider, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions? From okay. 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 All right. So option 1, no change. Option 2, we discontinue the service. Option 2 seems to be consensus. Do we need formal resolutions for these?
We can show them to the end.
Wait to the end. Okay. Okay. Option 2. Right. Thank you. Alicetown Community House. What's going on with the Crusaders, mate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, and again, this was alluded to earlier today, and obviously we had some public speakers this morning talking around Alicetown. So, as Andrea noted before, we did the assets review over the last couple of years, looking to optimise assets that we held. This has come forward slightly due to the unfortunate fire in November last year. So, we're in a situation now where we're seeking a decision on what to do with the land. So we have information back from the insurance company, and some of that's updated since this template was done. But basically, from the insurance company, the settlement would be $360,000. It would cost around $25K to demolish, and then the land value sits at $650. So and then we've got within there the kind of insurance around what it would cost if you decided you wanted to rebuild. So the information's there. We're pretty confident we'll be able to sell it. It is a positive site. I mean, obviously, community talked about the importance of the site, but it's also a very good housing site as well with the land. So open to any questions on that.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. I couldn't quite follow the insurance piece to its or every possible conclusion. If we were to demolish, does insurance cover the cost of demolition, or is that something that ratepayers would have to pay? It does?
So I'll just bring Joe Sluman, Head of Assets and Facilities,
Thank
up for
you.
the detailed questions.
Kia ora. Yeah, as John said, Joe Sluman, Head of Assets and Facilities Management. To be honest, I don't know for sure that the demolition costs would be covered by the insurance, but we can certainly follow up on that. But generally, I believe it would be.
Typically in situations like this, beyond our excess, you get a payout for your assets, and that's what I'd expect to happen here. Yeah. Just while we're at it, John, in relation to any sale, we would normally speak to UPL first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, and that is, given they're on the lookout for land for further housing, that's looking quite positive.
And I just did have a question too about the user group, Transition Towns Lower Hutt. We didn't have an opportunity to ask them any questions, but their name suggests they service all of Lower Hutt, and they've been out of that building since the fire. So has there already been efforts to house at least some of their activities elsewhere in town?
Yes, they have been reaccommodated. Generally, they found their own alternative premises, but council has offered them assistance to do that within our own facilities. Yeah.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, just following up from Councillor Mitchell's question. Have the transition towns let you know about any particular requirements for their clients? And I'm particularly thinking about comments that were made in a private conversation with me, not under public submission, around the need for privacy and the removal or dislocation from the feeling of government oversight for those particular services to function well.
Yeah, I have had similar comments with them as well. They have expressed that they would like that privacy. We have offered shared space within libraries, for example, which they, not to speak for them, they will need to talk to their own, but they have kind of indicated that that wouldn't necessarily be suitable for some of their groups. Yeah.
Sorry, within that consideration, thinking about UPL, if UPL were to take over the site, would there be the ability to still host a smaller footprint, but the same idea within UPL services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that would be sold to UPL or whoever it might be, and I mean it's not a massive site, but there is the possibility of, I suspect, about 3 to 4 townhouses on there.
No more questions? So option 1, status quo, reinstate and lease. Option 2, demolish and sell.
One of the things that was alluded to within public comment was issues with transition towns being able to pay the higher rate as we look through our asset review. Have they indicated that they would be able to sign on or would not be able to sign on with the continued lease?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, firstly, the increased rent hasn't come through, that amount hasn't come through council for a decision. But as far as whether they would be able to do that, I'm not aware of that at this time.
I can probably add to that one if it's helpful. And that as part of the asset review, we're bringing through all of the various sets of assets to be reconsidered in the context of resetting for the appropriate level of cost recovery. We've already done it with a number of our leases, and you'll see those starting to come through as well, where there's been a significant increase to the cost of leases, which often are peppercorn or very low, and to achieve a better level of cost recovery. We've done it with community halls. That was towards the end of last year. Community houses are due to come through this year when their leases expire. And so the set of community houses that we fund will all come through at one time, and council will get a chance to decide at that point whether they, what they think the appropriate rent is there in that context of needing better cost recovery.
Thank you. Yeah, I just know from the conversations that I've had that they've indicated that if there was a significant increase, they would not be able to cover it. So I don't, yeah.
I think one of the things that we're learning from the conversation that we've had with the community halls, you might recall when they came through, their starting position for all of them was that if we increase the cost, that they couldn't operate anymore, and that was the starting position. Once they realised the, I guess, privileged position, and I say privileged because that's what they said, we realised we've been in a privileged position and that we've had the benefit of an asset at a very low cost when other people haven't had the same opportunity. We've managed to now come to a really good agreement in at least one case, and hopefully we will in the others, where the facility is better optimised. They're still getting what they need out of it, but council is getting a better cost recovery. So I think sometimes our role is to challenge existing operating models and work with people to facilitate them to understand other ways they could operate that would actually get a better outcome for everyone.
Councillor Young, then Councillor Mitchell.
Kia ora, officers. Really mindful that we're talking about transition towns, Laha, and as Councillor Mitchell has alluded to, they're kind of all over and across the city, but I'm really mindful of even just what Guy submitted to us as someone who actually has a business in Alicetown, and I'm kind of curious to know if that house itself actually services, or to what extent does it service people, particularly in Alicetown? Do we have any gauge of that whatsoever? Because it seems like that's the missing piece for me around how much localised benefit there is.
I mean, to be honest, I have no metrics for you, but we only lease it to transition towns as a tenant, and they operate their own user groups out of that. So council has no direct oversight of the user groups.
And just in terms of optimising use, as has been mentioned as kind of a guiding principle of our asset review, do we have any idea how many hours a week it's even in use by transition towns, Lower? They've got the lease for 24/7, but how much do they even use it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, not off the top of our head, we don't know, so.
Can I also, through you, Mr. Mayor, just also suggest that one of the things that we know, not just about our own asset review, but as government is withdrawing funding from different voluntary organisations and third sector type things, actually we're not the only landlord. There are sometimes, by getting people to follow the same principles as we are in our own asset review, there may be opportunities there we can put people in touch with.
Option 1, status quo. Option 2, demolish and sell. Option 2. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just make a quick comment on that one? I think the thing I'm struggling with this, and probably many around the room, is it's come to us at an awkward timing. We're in the middle of asset review, there's been a fire, there's insurance payout, we have very little information about the use of the asset. Obviously, this is going out for consultation, this one will, because this is a departure. If we could ask for a lot more information of the sort of questions that we're asking now when the actual decision time comes, that will be really useful.
So is that option 2 for now? Is that what the council is saying? Yeah. Subject to consultation? Yeah.
And I think if it does come back to us for future decision, can we have some more information about how much it's being utilised and those kind of things? And also, as I asked about, how has this group now been accommodated? Because
what's been done in the interim?
By that time, it'll be 6 months since the fire, and they might be perfectly happy where they now are.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this kind of puts in a little bit of limbo in terms of the insurance claim, because we would need to progress that. Because at the moment, we either need to work with them on settling for a rebuild or settling for demolition.
Well, either way, nothing could happen until we've signed off the draft annual plan 30th of June. Is that not correct?
Quick look at Google, not that it is definitive, suggests that it's open 4 days a week for 2 hours between 10 and 12.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd also advise, I know we're sort of making references to community consultation. Community consultation matters will be briefed to council in March, though initial advice would be it's not necessarily correct that you'd have to consult on a decision like this in terms of our significance and engagement policy, and we would be able to advise on that, but it's not necessarily correct to say that consultation would be required on this decision.
Councillor Stellinger.
It appears to me that we need to make a decision now rather than a decision for the annual plan, which is a little bit different to what might flow through our agenda in the normal way. So I suppose we could do it as part of this meeting, or I know we've got a council meeting to follow. Well, it's not on the agenda there anyway, but if that's the case, this committee could make a recommendation to the council meeting that's about to come to demolish, say, and that council could resolve it, and that's the end of the matter, assuming we're okay with not consulting on it, which of course would be the result. If officers are fine with it, I would be fine with that.
Our recommendation would be, it's your call, our recommendation would be option 2 in the light of the report you had around the Tom, and of course for whatever services do need to be provided, then there are lots of buildings around in different places to do it, and Transition Towns itself is not an Alicetown specific project.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to add to that, we would obviously, I mean, Transition Towns have found a temporary place to operate in. We would work with them to find something that is appropriate for them moving forward as well.
So we're comfortable with option 2, Andy?
It's just one more question, which is whether or not we have a policy about what happens when any of our assets get damaged in this way. It feels a bit weird that we are sitting in a budgeting conversation, and surely we can't wait every time there's an emergency for the next annual plan to come around to decide what to do about a particular asset. Yeah.
Go to subcommittee.
And you're probably just noting there's no public consultation on this, that everybody just understands it. Yes, we'll be coming to your committee.
Could we park this one until we come back for the consultation document sign off, knowing what we've just heard, this isn't going to be in the consultation document? I think the only people we need to talk to are Transition Towns, which if we'd had longer at public comment and been able to ask questions, we probably could have sorted some of this out. That gives officers a month to have those conversations, come back to us with what the use is. Are they happy to pay anything? If not, if they've found new premise and don't want to pay $10,000 and they're happy elsewhere, then I'm more than happy to support option 2, but it's hard to know without guessing.
Do you get the sense we might be procrastinating over this, or no?
It's a matter for council. We're asking you whether you want to expend public money creating new assets that are underused when you have an asset strategy and you're talking about changing it. It's your call. I wouldn't have thought it needs to go on for too long.
I don't know if this will help move it ahead, but I'm prepared just to support option 2, which is the demolition one, I think. And I agree with the comments from the Chief Executive. If this is a item that we can't rationalise, then I just really wonder about the merits of all our investment in the Tom in relation to asset rationalisation, because I think there'll be a lot of tougher decisions to have than this one. So I definitely would support option 2.
Councillor Parkin.
Yes,
Kia ora, thank you. I appreciate all of the considerations here. For me, it comes down to process. This is part of the LTP consultation. It's been put in the wrong place. It hasn't been given the time and consideration for the Transition Towns to come and talk to us. I really am very uncomfortable with making a decision to demolish without actually having that full consultation and full engagement with the group. I would be much more comfortable with putting this off till through another meeting cycle and actually having that discussion so that we make well-informed decisions. Our CE has stated that this asset is underutilised. We haven't heard that. We don't have the evidence. It being open for 2 hours a day is technically correct. I go in there and it's relatively quiet from time to time, but they do utilise the asset for community groups that do not have the ability to easily operate out of our libraries, drug alcohol rehabilitation, etc., which members of the community would not feel comfortable coming into a standard building that feels like a government building, often refugees. I'm presenting with a very, very limited knowledge, and I'm very aware of how little knowledge I have of this. I would like to hear from Transition Towns directly so that we have a proper and full picture of what we are removing from the community and whether or not those assets, those resources can be picked up by other locations.
The reason it's here is because of the fire, not because we dreamt it up. So we have to either decide to return to the status quo or use an unfortunate situation to make a strategic move. That's why it's here today, and I can see that the confluence of time is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Can I just add, through Mr. Mayor, we've got a vacant fire-damaged building in the middle of Alicetown, so we don't want to leave it in the current state for too much longer.
Councillor Barrett and Councillor Ravi.
Kia ora, thank you. And I'm coming from the part of, or the area that I'm at that building almost every day. It's extensively damaged, and I've heard from the officers that this is, if we procrastinate any longer, it is going to severely impact on our consultation with the insurers, and we need to be doing something. There are so many other assets around the hut that transition towns could be involved in. And I'm sure, once again, I've heard the officers say that if it is a problem as far as rent or any other sort of negotiation they need, then they will be talking to them and working alongside them. I really don't think we need to hold on to this for very much longer.
Thank you. Councillor Ravi.
I think this is a great opportunity for us to actually go through the demolition process, because it is not being used currently, and people have already found alternate options. They are working from somewhere, we don't know where, but this is happening at the moment. We need to just find out where are they okay, or is there any support we need to be providing them, which is probably the next step. But at the moment, I think this is a great opportunity for us to really make this decision when we are looking at the target operating model and looking at how do we look at our assets as a whole. So I support the demolition. Thank you.
We're just sorting the wording to put that recommendation.
Just got a question. If we need to make a decision really quickly on this, why is it in our draft annual plan, which doesn't come into effect since 1 July? Any decisions we make now aren't really actionable until they're signed off on 1 July. It sounds like we need to make a decision.
No, because it's not part of consultation. We will make the decision now. We'll speak to the insurers and we'll get on with it.
But it's a decision in this financial year, not the next one, which is what we're signing off today.
If you give us the steer today, Councillor Dyer, you've done an assets review, you just adopted a TOM. This is the one we're saying, what do you want to do? And we'll just get on with it. It doesn't have to wait till the 1st of July. As Councillor Barrett said, we've got a building there that we need to sort sooner rather than later.
Could I not wait though until our next full council meeting, which is in less than a month's time, which time we can talk with the people that use the space and actually find out how they're using it? Like I said, if they've moved on, it's not a conversation.
You absolutely can. I'm just, with respect, pointing out that you've done an assets review, you've adopted a TOM. Here's a decision that actually can comply with that or not. And we're just keen not to have paralysis by analysis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think will also be worthwhile advising that the terms of reference for this committee, while principally most of the decisions relate to the annual plan for the forthcoming year, the remit of this committee is actually wider in that respect and can be delegated to make a wide range of financial decisions recommended up to council. So it's appropriate for this decision in that context to come to this committee as well.
Councillor Mitchell, Andy, did you have your hand up, Darcy?
I've kind of lost track where we are. We got a motion on the floor to be debated, or I'm happy to wait until we do. Up on the screen, has it been moved and seconded? No?
Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, I'll be voting against it for the reasons I've already outlined, which I won't repeat. If this fails, I'll move a motion that will ask officers to represent this to us in less than a month's time when this committee and full council is meeting again, which gives us a few weeks to have a chat with the people that use this house.
Yeah, look, I'm willing to accept this as one of the difficult decisions we're going to have to make in the next few years, and it's even more difficult, I think, because of the urgency. which is not of our doing. So my personal feeling is that we should probably go ahead with this rather than litigate it, noting that, as I said, I assumed if we had a policy that said when any of our community assets are catastrophically damaged, it would come to council, and part of the conversation that would come to council was we've rehomed these tenants, and what do we do with this asset now? And that's kind of what I'm hearing anyway. And, you know, I'm involved in several community groups that meet in non-government premises. There are plenty of premises like that around the city. What there isn't around the city is a community house in every community. When I first ran for this council to represent the Eastern Ward, I kind of realised for myself that there's, you know, no community house in Fairfield down the road from Nainai, and there's no community house in Waterloo down the road from Fairfield, and there's no community house in Waifetu down the road from there. So, you know, I realised I was lucky to live in a suburb that had great community facilities, but it's certainly not the norm or an expectation, I think, all across our city. Notable, I think, that we've heard from Transition Town's Lower Hutt today, but we didn't have a public gallery full of Alicetown residents. And when a community hall in Nainai was closed, there was a petition to this council with hundreds of signatories, and council still went ahead and demolished it because it was of safety risk. So, you know, I think it's pretty telling that, like, based on what we do know, I feel like this probably is an underutilised facility. It's used primarily by one group who service the whole city. It's not the transition suburb, Alicetown. And knowing that they have found some suitable premises elsewhere, I feel like we would literally be rebuilding a new asset to service one community group who could be operating and are operating out of other premises. So I think this one we should probably cut our losses and move on.
Well said. Do we need to put it to the vote? All those in favour say aye. Those against?
No.
Do we need to call for division or show of hands?
Those against? Okay.
Thank you. It's carried. Item 5, the road safety campaigns and activities.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So as part of the long-term plan, councillors in the last triennium will remember you made a decision to reduce the funding due to the level of reduction from NZTA funding. So we still did get a small amount, but it was a lot less than what we expected. So this paper is put forward a proposal for the next year to basically remove the remaining funding, which is 51% NZTA funded. Road safety would be included in other projects. So the Infrastructure and Regulatory Committee will be seeing a couple of papers next week around some safety improvements, including around the corner here and the corner of Myrtle and Langs, as an example, and Eastern Hutt Road, where the awful hit and run occurred a couple of years ago. So there will still be safety. It will be built into projects. It will be built into all the other initiatives, but would not be a separate cycle safety in schools, driver's licensing, car seat clinics, for example, that are also included in that now. Thank you. Open to any questions.
Thank you, Chair. I note that one of the things in the analysis is that there is no climate risk or impacts on this proposal. I'm wondering how this actually aligns with our commitment to zero carbon and the mode shift that is required to hit zero carbon. I just don't see the two aligning, that if we don't have school patrols allowing students to walk to school safely, and we're not encouraging that, and we're not encouraging cycle safety in schools at the same level, how we're going to meet those mode shift targets.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so the mode shift targets will still be dealt with through all of our other projects and the other initiatives that we'll be doing as a BAU through, you know, obviously to put Horonuku through the shared paths and cycleways through Te Wai Takamori o Te Ara Kairangi. There are other agencies like Waka Kotahi do a certain amount. Greater Wellington do cycle skills. There are a lot of community groups that do a lot of that as well. So you know, we're not the only show in town in terms of that. Thank you. Open to any questions. Thank you. It's carried. Item 6, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. Thank you. It's carried. Item 7, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 8, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 9, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 10, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 11, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 12, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 13, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 14, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried. Item 15, the road safety campaigns and activities. Thank you. It's carried.
Councillor
Yeah, I
Shaw.
agree. There's quite a bit of duplication here with other organisations. Question I have is about youth and the youth driver licensing program. Is that the only one run by Youth Inspire, or are there other programs that we fund as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware, to be honest. As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Thank you. I think the officers answered my question, but just following on from other organisations that would support these activities, are these schools and that aware of the funding from other places like Waka Kotahi?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so we'd need to, when we go out and communicate with schools to say we won't be carrying on with this, if that's the decision, then we would give them some options that are out there to look at.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. Could you just clarify what the school patrol events are? Is that the end of the year celebratory events? Yeah, the pool party? Yeah, it is. Okay. And so is the NZTA funding for this no longer available, or is still there? Or is this an example of one where they pull the funding so we're pulling ours, or is it still there the far?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so we still have the 51%, but we would be losing that revenue, but also not spending our share either.
So this would be a reduction of $60,000 a year.
Roughly, yeah.
Councillor Ravi.
Well, those questions have been already answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So option 1, no change. Option 2, discontinue. Show of hands for option 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Show of hands option, what was that, Andy, 1 or 2?
Option 1 is discontinue, is it?
Option 1 is no change.
Keep it.
Option 1. Oh, yeah. So it's majority for option 1. Can we just raise your hands again? Option 1. 1, 2, 2, 4, 6. Option 2. Six, 5. It's a thriller. Item 6, neighbourhood support services. We done that one? We've done 7 as well. 8 and 9 we've done. Item 10. Have we done 10?
No, you're due to do 10. To help members with this and further to Councillor Stallinger's question under the TOM, although we've given an indication of what 3-year funding would be, really what we're seeking there in particular right now is the funding for next year. And as we indicated as part of the programme, we'll come back to you then to identify what that would look like, where the remainder of it would come from, banking the savings, etc., etc. So that was the reason I said that, Councillor Stanger, is because we parked that from first time round, and I'm looking to Jared to say that's what we are suggesting. So although it talks about 3 million over 6 years, right now we're asking you to commit to 2 million. Sorry if I was long-winded.
6 million over 3.
I thought we were going to.
Item 10 on the table, target operating model. Oh, now you're challenging me.
196. 96. All the 9's 96. All good? Item 11? Are we all good with 10? Yep, days, yes. Item 11. Just you, John. Councillor Ravi, your microphone's on.
Sorry, what? Oh,
We can hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're doing parking, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So members have heard from the community this morning with their views. We've provided the advice based on the data that we hold, which is not great. We don't have a whole lot of information. So options such as a business levy is a significant amount of work that there's no way that we could have that anything like done for the 1st of July. Some of the options are potentially a little bit more positive. One of the things that we can do is look to have a special parking zone just for Jackson Street, which would give us a whole lot more data to enable any decisions you may want to make in the future. Because it's just, at the moment, it's HC2 and it's lumped in with everything downtown here. So that'll be just, and it's separate to Peel Street as well, which is its own little one. So that is something that that we are also proposing that you may want to take, so that we would have that information moving forward, and then those machines could potentially be used for, treated slightly differently if that's how you wish. Open to any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Edwards.
A real quick one, and I suspect you haven't got it, but quite a bit was made this morning about the occupancy calculations that some of the businesses have done down there recently. Does council have any figures? I suspect it wouldn't have been much different, those occupancy, to prior to meters going in, but do you have any different information?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, sorry, we don't from prior. The information we do have since is just average length of time. We don't have a, they're estimates. Anything else is an estimate because we don't have the, we don't have the exact data of the park by park usage.
Councillor Ravi, then Councillor Mitchell.
So just wondering, apart from the options proposed, has it been, have the officers considered options with a lesser fee with free 30-minute or 60-minute parking? Thank you.
So there have been a number of other options which are in the paper and in the templates around reducing those. They would also require a new parking zone because we can't do it with the current zone as it's set up. But because it would then go all across the whole city. But one of the options in here is reducing to $2 an hour, for example. There's also the half hour, first hour free, which is one of the options which is in front of you now. So, or status quo.
Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Puketapu.
I feel like every time I hear about it, the details shift, but on this piece of paper, the preferred proposal from Jackson Street is 30 minutes free parking, $1.50 per hour thereafter, which they describe as being revenue neutral. I'm not sure quite about their calculations, and I can discuss those later if need be, but have officers considered that proposal, and would you consider it likely to be revenue neutral?
I'll bring Paul Hewitt, Head of Transport, up as well for this part.
Kia ora. Through the chair, we'd had previously conversations with Jackson Street program regarding parking and the options that we'll be looking at, and through those conversations we sort of rested on the $2 as a potential reduction to move that one forward. Now there's the $1.50 option, so we haven't analysed that one as well.
Further than that, Mr. Chair, the options are flowing freely, and we haven't quite kept up with all of the solutions that are being proposed.
Sorry, if I could just get back to the substance of my question. The options that you have discussed, would you consider any of them to be revenue neutral as is proposed by Jackson Street program to lower the fee, provide free parking and lower the fee for remaining parking? Do you think that would deliver a revenue neutral result?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a lot of assumptions in that we would need to spend a lot more time on.
Councillor Shaw.
There were a number of options presented here and also with public comment this morning. One of them was made by John Donnelly, and my ears pricked up because he said that it was a bit of a win-win for both of us with a double in income with an optimal modelling approach. Was that something you'd been approached with or considered? or is it all new to you?
Do you, Mr Mayor? No, that was the first time we'd heard that particular one.
If I may say, they did a Jackson Street programme, met with Jenny and I and Alicia earlier this week. I know they met with the Mayor last week. And they indicated their sort of optimal modelling. The truth is we just don't know, and that's part of the reason why we're suggesting to you that we create a new parking area at Jackson Street, so we can actually get data to certainly help you in your next long-term plan. So we did know about it before today, but there's no way of verifying it, I think, Councillor Shaw, one way or another.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. So I'm definitely in favour of the new zone, which will give us some more data. I'm just wondering whether or not it would be possible for us to set a maximum rate like we do with the EV charging, and then give officers the instruction to aim for the occupancy rate that we have set in our parking policy, and allow the usage to actually be dictate how much the pricing is. Obviously, that causes a challenge with our budgeting long term, but in theory, if we are increasing the usage rate, it will offset the amount by neutralizing, by having more income. But ultimately, we're trying to make sure that we're utilizing parking efficiently and effectively, and that's what our parking policy is supposed to be doing.
Through you, Mr Mayor, short answer is no. That is, I think, incredibly complicated and would be almost impossible to run.
Councillor Dyer and Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. And we have a parking strategy now in place, which we didn't when we brought in Petone Pay parking. And that was one of the arguments against bringing it in a few years ago, was that we should do the strategy first and then do Petone Pay parking. We're now in the reverse position where we've got the strategy, which has a very clear pathway for deciding on exactly these matters, which says if the occupancy rate at peak times is higher than 85%, you tweak the pricing. Do we know what the occupancy rate is on Jackson Street at peak times?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, because we don't have, we've got, you know, again, it's lumped in with HC2, so we don't have the individual data for Jackson Street to be able to provide that info.
And what data do we have from the trial that was ran in December?
Because the meters were turned off, there is no usage stats for December. It's just anecdotal.
But do we have any like FPOS spend to compare against other regions in New Zealand, or?
Through infometrics and stuff, I mean, there is reports out there that look at spend throughout, but I don't have them at hand at the moment, sorry.
The criticism of that spend from JSP, and it's fair, is that it's very hard to dissect Jackson Street from the big box retailing that also occurs there, including supermarkets, for example, along Jackson Street. And that's a very legitimate criticism that they have. So manufactured data that's not there.
Councillor Mitchell.
I think I've asked this before, but our car that's going around checking on compliance with parking, can that collect occupancy data?
We'll bring Justin in for that one.
Hi there. In short, yes, it can. There's a bit of complexity because it requires a lot of data dissection on the other end. Basically, what the system does is it calculates the number of cars that are parked versus the number of car parks available, but it won't give you the length of time that, like, for example, if it goes past one time and there's 5 car parks and 3 of them are occupied, it'll say 60% occupancy, but it'll only give you that occupancy at that point in time. You'd have to do over a long period of time with multiple trips around, which is already doing for, as part of its monitoring compliance. We just have to invest resources to get a data analyst to actually drill into that data and produce something meaningful.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest that's probably a lot more reliable data than you're going to get from meters, which don't tell you how many cars are parked in car parks. It tells you how many people have paid to park in a car park. It doesn't tell you if they haven't paid. It doesn't tell you if they've paid and left 20 minutes ago. It doesn't tell you occupancy at all, really. So I think that if we want to, I mean, certainly there's some insight to be found by carving out Petone as its own zone and looking at the payment data. But I think if you really want to zero in on occupancy, like I walked down Jackson Street on a Thursday afternoon at about 1:30 in the middle of January, which is not the busy month, and I swear the occupancy across the whole street was probably at 80% at least.
If I jump back to the Tom, one of the things we say in there is that we want to do some investment to improve, I know you say data.
Yeah.
Data. And I just can't get my head around saying it the other way. Data and how we, investing in that and how we analyse it and
That'd be
and
great.
indeed how we use AI to support some of that. So we can take that on board in terms of the moving our Tom forward.
And
Because
what resources we already have. If those cars can do it, then let's get them doing it, yeah.
I'm thinking that with all the debate, this is an option one. Put that. Councillor Young.
Just while I'm thinking about it, I actually think having a different zone for Petone is a great thing, and I probably stressed that quite early on, probably even when I was sitting where you're sitting now. But I am just mindful of, does that open up other options? Because I know previously when I've asked a question around could we, say, deviate from what is currently happening and is consistent, does this open up other options to change that? Because what I'm actually also hearing and I'm really mindful of around when it comes to parking is it doesn't deal with the cashless conversation, and I'm trying to think a little bit outside the box in terms of what else we could be doing that maybe changes the game a little bit. So I think I've suggested in the past, what would it look like if we moved a couple of hours? Would that allow for space for people to come in who have who would have the challenges with cashless or whatever, but it just kind of, I'm just trying to think, are there other possibilities that allow us to deviate if we were to create a different zone as well? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it would open up the ability to have a free charge at the start. That's not going to cover. So if you wanted, if you wanted in the future to do half hour or hour free or what have you, or certain time of the year, then that would open that up, because at the moment, the whole everywhere that had a meter would do that.
Just further to that, I just want to flesh out some of the monitoring implications of some of the options we put forward. So the proposal to have either half hour free or the first hour free is definitely a possibility, but I just want to kind of communicate the operational implications of that. So the way it works at other councils is that you are still required to engage with the meter, and the meter then gives you a free parking coupon. So if there's instances where customers who already have struggles engaging with technology don't do that, they will end up getting enforcement consequences, which is something I'd like to avoid.
Sorry, just to clarify, I'm not actually diving into the conversation around half an hour free. I'm literally suggesting, like, if you were to move the charging time like 2 hours one way, would that, like, so, for instance, so you started an hour late or whatever, would that, so then it's like, it's considered it's not even on. Sorry, because I'm just really mindful that, Petone, for instance, doesn't operate typically from a 9 to 5 in the same way as CBD, and we've always put the blanket rule across, which I'm not convinced is the best way if we're talking revenue and parking management.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, we're aiming for consistency across all the metered areas, but it would open up if that was something you wanted to consider the timing in the future.
Councillor Edwards.
I'm happy to second that motion. I think it's a good motion. I'm grateful to hear from the people that came in this morning. I've no doubt that businesses in Jackson Street are hurting, and I absolutely agree that meters will be one reason for that. I'm sure there's other reasons as well. But I can't get beyond the fact that we keep talking about paid parking in Petone, which is a recognised metropolitan area under district plan definitions. When the government was talking about building heights, it was Lower Hutt Central and Petone. They're selling themselves short when they say that they're just a little suburban area and shouldn't be touched. They're not the same as an Avalon or a Nainai. They're quite a big retail area. And the other factor that weighs heavily on me, and I feel a bit like that Travago guy on the telly, you know, do I have to say it again? What about the central city? You know, these are people who are putting up with Riverlink disruption. They're putting up with a mall that's got free parking right alongside. They're putting up with the fact that we are about to extend more meters up High Street towards Pack and Save. They must wonder to themselves, how come Petone gets all this, you know, talk about the impact of meters? Let's do this and create Jackson Street as a parking zone so that we have got some data so that we can then investigate the talk that if we increased occupancy, we could get the same amount of revenue. But I don't think we should change anything until then.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm happy to stick with the status quo as well. And I've said before, I'm well prepared to entertain robust proposals that are based on some data and clearly explained and show me how the maths works. I don't see how the maths works on this current one. And yeah, instead we've got a couple of brief bullet points in a proposal and way more information presented today in public comment than was actually in the proposal in our papers. So and as has been noted, multiple options again thrown around from the floor. Like if there was one concise proposal that made sense to me, I would support it, but that's not what we're getting from the Jackson Street program or from anyone else. So far, that doesn't mean it can't happen in the future, and it doesn't mean our officers can't work when we do have data to find something that makes sense, but that's not what has been presented to us again this time around. So I'm quite happy to stick with the status quo and, yeah, as I said, entertain any sensible proposal when it does come through.
Councillor Lewis.
I didn't expect to be this early. I thought Prava was first. Yeah, I heard all the conversations this morning and round the table. What surprises me with all the new technology, we can't get the data to do the right, present right and defend our case as to why we are doing this. I know for the ratepayers, yes, but my concern is the businesses now, because I voted for paid parking in Petone. And honestly, I used to think Hutt City was, we're the same, so that we both should be the same, both cities. But Councillor Starlinger pointed out to me that Hutt City has all their businesses above it as well, whereas Petone doesn't, and it's a quick turnover place. So what I'm saying is there's pressure and a reason to do it in Hutt City, but in Petone it is quite different. And we heard that difference coming through from the retailers today. The fact that we could do this, we could keep the paid parking, the status quo there, but I don't think we'll have a Petone and a Jackson Street in 2 years' time. It will be gone because the pressures are on them, and we're putting people out of business. We're giving people, losing their jobs because we want to save how much money have we made on the Petone? 300,000 in this last year, and all the investment we've put in, and we've only got that return. So I think doing the new zone is one thing, but I think we might lose Petone if we don't look after them in the interim of getting our data right first to then make a wise decision. Once upon a time, we used to get students to go and walk the street and get the data, and it was pretty cheap, better than technology. So I really think it can be done before we keep hitting the town, and we've been told for a year now that they're not coping, they're losing business, and it's not just all the other things in the economy, they're hitting businesses. I feel this is one area that is really hurting them, and it came through today. So, yeah, I can't support the status quo again.
Councillor Ravi, then Councillor Tonga Grant.
Thank you. Likewise, I do not support the status quo, and I would actually like to move that option 2B is adopted with the variation to keep the fee at $1.50 from the second hour onwards, just for 2 years, just the fee component for 2 years, and review it after 2 years. We've heard from several speakers this morning with data, plea, and some of them really losing business and losing their house as well. So our businesses are doing it really, really tough since paid parking was introduced. Many have reported a clear drop in revenue. Jackson Street, once one of the busiest and most attractive streets or vibrant areas in Lower Hutt, is now seeing reduced foot traffic and regularly empty car parks during the day. For decades, Jackson Street thrived without paid parking. The fees have had unintended consequences, hurting activity and confidence in the area. It is important we support the local business, restore vibrancy, and bring people back to Jackson Street. Therefore, adopting 2B with the variation that I've just suggested will be the best option in the interim. And many of you know I campaigned on this as well, because I did see a lot of unoccupied car parks on a daily basis when I was there visiting the businesses. So this is not just occupancy being 80%. It was not 80%. It was much lesser during the day. I'm not talking about the evenings, but during the day. So it is hard. People are doing it very tough. And this is our opportunity to show some consideration and ensuring that Jackson Street, like how Councillor Lewis mentioned, ensuring that our businesses are going to be thriving, not just trying to survive in this current climate. So we need to pay a bit more attention to what the businesses are saying and consider it positively. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tonga Grant.
Thank you, Chair. I was just reflecting on what Councillor Helen Swales had shared in her public comment, and she said that the free parking in December saw more cars and people but less money being spent. So we can't just say that that the paid parking is the only thing that is affecting these businesses. And whilst I do really care deeply about some of the effects and some of the businesses that are there, I don't think we can decide that removing paid parking is going to help that. And even if we offered the 30 minutes or an hour, does that put unnecessary strain on our staff who are out on the offices, you know, for altercations of, I was only here for 28 minutes, you know? And so having those, is that taking away from what council officers could actually be doing as well? But yeah, that's probably my thoughts, and I'm in support of the current motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett, then Councillor Stellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do really feel for those businesses that came to talk to us this morning. In fact, when I was getting my coffee and first coming into the building this morning, I was stopped by someone who I won't name, who presented today, who told me that they will only be voting for those people in the that vote for this today. So I have to say, I feel in the midst of a dilemma here. I feel for them, but I actually have to support option 1 due to the unfairness of the inequality between Petone and Central Hutt. I don't know how many people try to come into the Hutt or go through the Hutt each and every day, but the traffic is horrendous. People are trying to find places to park. They are waiting. Sometimes the wait time to get through the Hutt at the moment is anywhere from 30 to an hour just to get through. And then you get down to Petone and it's easy, you just whiz through. But I just think if we do for one, we should be doing for the other. And that's what's coming in my ear each and every day. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll be voting for option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Stellinger?
Yes, I'm not sure. We actually have on the, I think we have on the table a motion. Yes, so that's right. So, well, councillors, existing councillors or councillors who were here before will recall my position on this, which I've been consistent through and repeated during the campaign and when people ask me since, and that was that I was not against parking meters for Petone. It was just that I didn't think the time which we put them in was the right time, and I think it's still not the right time. Of course, we have the meters and charges in place now, and the weight of comments so far indicate there's not that much support for moving against the status quo. So I'll be voting against the item part 2 of the recommendations. I think I should put my glasses on, sorry. And I'll just signal that if it's defeated, that I would move a new recommendation, and that's something I've crafted up with a mind to our targeted operating model and the revenue loss with the options that are on the table here. And it would be to the effect that we reduce the parking fee for the 12 months from 1st of July to this year to $1 per hour. And the following year, we increase that to $2 an hour, and for subsequent years, we charge the full rate the same as we do currently for Zone 2, or whatever it will be at the time. Reason for suggesting that is it avoids the enforcement difficulties that the time free would bring. And most importantly, the loss of revenue would, I just did a very quick calculation in my head, it's probably something like $600,000 across the full 8 years of our plan, rather than the 1.8 million or thereabouts for various other, well, that was for the option for having $2 per hour indefinitely. So it's significantly cheaper and probably wouldn't require that much of a rates increase because it's only a temporary effect. So that's my position. Thank you.
Councillor Pukitapu?
Even in this discussion, it's so hard, eh? that blade is really sharp. But what continues to sit there for me is this is not necessarily a question about paid parking. This is a question about how it gets paid and who pays for it. And if we make a decision about removing paid parking, ultimately that goes on the rates. And so people will be paying for parking who don't even visit Petone. And so when I think about inequities across Te Awa Kairangi, the question that sits in there in my mind is it fair to be asking people who do not visit Petone to be paying for some of this, the rates, for other people's parking in the area that they choose to travel to? And so with that I can't consciously feed into that inequity that exists across Te Awa Kairangi, so I have to actually support the motion that's, or the recommendation that's on the floor.
Councillor Dyer, then.
Thank you. As someone who's a business owner myself and had 3 businesses on Jackson Street, I absolutely feel the pain of the businesses, not just in Jackson Street, but all around Lower Hutt that are struggling at the moment. But as Councillor Edwards and Councillor Tonga Grant pointed out, parking is just one of many things. This morning the public spoke to us. They showed us some data from Lagoima requests that I haven't actually seen before, and showed us that the number of fines on the street is very huge. So no amount of tinkering with the hourly rate or 15, 30 minutes free will remove that. If anything, I think it'll exacerbate it. I actually came to the meeting prepared to possibly support a free period of time at the front after a number of conversations over the last 6 months on the campaign, that the effort of using the machine or the app for some parts of our community was the issue. But hearing from officers that they would still have to jump through all those hoops of using the app or the machine to even just get the free period, no reduction in rate or timeframes is going to fix that issue. As I said in my question, we're in the fortunate position this time round that we've actually got a parking strategy in place, which provides a very clear pathway for deciding on exactly the issue in front of us. Unfortunately, we've got no data from the trial in December. We've got no FPOS spend of how we compared to the national average. JSP said they did a survey. Where is the survey? They said 93% of their businesses had a reduction in income over that period. Where is that data? It would be really useful to see that. Occupancy rates. The only thing we heard is from one member of the public saying that the feeling in the air was much better in Petone in December. So for that reason, I'll support what's in front of us for now, but I'm prepared to look at this again when we follow the strategy that we've got in place.
Yep. So it's been moved and seconded, yes? Feel like there's been so much debate, I forgot. Oh, yeah. Councillor.
Just a request, please, could we take those two resolutions separately?
Okay. So we'll put part 1. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Declare that carried. Part 2, those in favour? Those against? So I declare that carried. Do we need division? Do we need division? Right, we got it. Yeah.
I clocked councillors Ravi, Salinger, Parkin and Lewis against. Is that correct? That's the division.
Okay, table 3, budget rephasing for consideration by council. On page 98 of the agenda, recommendation 5. No? 12?
Page 98.
Page 98. What did I say?
Oh, that's what you said.
Oh, it's been a long day. Network resilience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is around Eastern Hut Road, and just it's basically firstly confirming NZTA have confirmed funding for phase 1, which is there's 5 high-risk sites around where on the northern section of from the roundabout on Eastern Hut Road, where we did have a slip in 2022, and we've got the concrete barriers down the bottom, and also opposite that under the road, which is starting to crack as well. So phase 1, we've got that funding locked in. In order to unlock the remaining 10 sites, which go from there to kind of Silverstream Retreat, we need to do a bit more work. We've been granted funding for pre-implementation or detailed design of that work. So that'll take a little bit longer. So basically we'll be getting on with phase 1. Most of that work will fit into 26, 27, and just pushing the other funding out slightly to enable us to go through the NLTP process with NZTA in order to be able to finish those other sites after 2027. Open to any questions.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just a finance question for Jenny, I guess, because as you noted, the first part of it's funded. There's $11 million that's not funded, but it is included in the budget. Is that just because we expect to receive that funding in future?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Oh, thank you, John. Really pleased to hear this is progressing. Am I right in thinking that phase 1's actually going to move the project forward to start soon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor. Yes, so we're just in the process of getting procurement documentation ready. We'll be timing this very carefully due to the disruption through Riverlink in town, and but we need to make sure that that those main sites and the higher risk sites are done to shore up Eastern Hut Road, given the weather events here and much more significantly up north recently, the sooner we can progress with that, which will be in the next year, the better. So.
And another question, and you're quite right, there'll be increased traffic flow through there with Te Wai Takamori. It's already really busy, but I just want to, just in regards to this work, is there also consideration for improving the shared pathway or cycling lane at the same time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's no funding or consideration for that at this stage.
But that's still a possibility for a later date when the other 10 sites are considered.
It's not currently in our plans, but it is something that may be considered in the future.
Councillor Edwards.
Just a follow-up question to Councillor Shaw's, and it's a bit like talk of extending the railway line under Melling up to Kelson. Is anything that we're doing, shoring up the bottom of that road at Stokes Valley, going to block a future cycleway development there?
Through Mr. Mayor, so yeah, number one priority is protect the road and the community and the flow. Once we get into detailed design, we'll be able to have more of an understanding of the steepness, but I'm sure I'm assuming, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a straight drop off the side of the road, so I'm sure there's something we can do.
No other questions? Cross Valley.
Cool. So with Cross Valley, and noting you had a briefing not long ago about Petone to Granada. So what we're seeking to do here, and we've picked up the investment case that NZTA were working through and are working to finish that. So now that we have that understanding of the alignment of Petone to Granada, so in order to keep the project moving, what we're proposing is to retain some funding in the long-term plan and shift the bulk of it further out, because councillors will remember we had 180 million originally in there. Some of that decision was made in the last triennium to use some of that firstly to strengthen Cuba Street Overbridge, which is on the alignment anyway for Cross Valley, and then the Ava footbridge. So that work is going ahead. So we have actually started our Cross Valley, if you like, but this would be around proceeding to route protection. So finishing the investment case, which is almost done, proceeding to route protection so we can get designation and we can get consenting underway, and then further to that, heading into detailed design, particularly of the bridge that would go across the Hutt River as part of Cross Valley. So that's what we are seeking. So that'll then get the project there ready to go, turn it into a shovel-ready, if you like, project that's already designated, already designed, and when funding becomes available, then that would be ready to go for whether it's Waka Kotahi in the future, if it stays as a road of national significance or not, or council and Waka Kotahi together sometime in the future. So the information, the timing's not 100% with us. We are going to brief you on this next week, but there will be a detailed paper coming, and it actually says March here, but because the investment case is not quite finished, in May at INR, you will get a detailed paper seeking your formal permission to proceed with those, with that, and line up with Petone to Granada.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, when I heard this had become a road of national significance, I just assumed, and perhaps I was wrong to assume, that the government would pay for it. But here we are paying for route protection and bridge preparation and all these things that are part of building the road that we don't have to build anymore. So why are we paying for it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so it's a road of national significance at this stage. Whether that stays that way will be a decision that will be made fairly imminently, given there's 17, I think, or something like that, roads of national significance. This one didn't pass in terms of funding. It was originally ours, so it's my gut feel is it won't be one of those. So it will be up to us to go through the NLTP process in the future, in conjunction with NZTA funding to deliver.
And is it wise for us to go ahead and spend all this money now on a gut feeling rather than just kind of putting it on hold? I mean, as far as I know, they're out there doing root protection right now for Petone to Granada, and the local council isn't paying for all that stuff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So it's, whilst it's on the list of Orion, it's still kind of our program. We've done the business case up until this point. There are other parts apart from the link road that we're doing. So this is to give the hut basically the best chance of this being funded in the future. Whilst there's no NLTP contribution for the first bit, it will be put forward for 2027 to 2030. So we will be seeking and lobbying to get funding for that from July 27 for the bulk of the work in the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, if there's no more question, we've just got some.
I'll frame my thing as a question, like, what would be the impact of us pausing this now and not spending all this money on it in the next 2 or 3 years and waiting to see if the government will pay for the whole thing? Other than obviously maybe delaying the road by a couple of years. We've been waiting decades for it anyway.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I suppose if it proceeded and we were doing this work now and then it got picked up by central government to drive, that would enable that work to proceed without a stop. There's also, I mean, whilst it's probably unlikely, there's a fast track consent option potentially on the table, which would move it forward quicker and in alignment with Petone to Granada. So that is one other option that we could do. Pausing, it means we're probably not as far ahead. So when Peter G finishes, there will be impacts on Hutt Road, as we all know. So this is about getting ahead of that and making sure that, we've designed as best we can to manage the impacts of that extra traffic on our local roads as well. Sorry, that's not prohibiting. We go through if we go through this process and you approve this now, should central government, NZTA, pick up the whole tab, then we can obviously revisit that straight away. And those conversations will happen if that occurs. So, and then we go, once we present to you and then we come back to INR in May, you've got the ability to make any other decisions then too.
Councillor Stallinger.
Kind of a bit of a comment, but I'll take a question on the end of it for you, John. Very interesting discussion. Thanks, Councillor. I just reflect on the fact that if business cases were prepared on a different schedule in the past to what they were, now we would have Melling done and not State Highway 58, because the reason there was some surplus funds and the business case or the consents or whatever were ready to go, so that project went ahead, and not this one, which was Melling, which was considered a higher priority at the time. So my question is, progressing on at some cost, does it increase the chances that if stars align at a future date that we might be selected to go ahead as opposed to another project in the Hutt or even further afield?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor. That's a very good comment and question. And given we're shown a willingness to proceed without government funding at this time, with a view to partnering with them when they come back to the table, I would suspect that will have quite a high chance.
Okay, Kate's just getting our words sorted.
Sorry, number 6 should be no additional funding for 2026. There's still funding in there from the previous year.
Mr Mayor, if you're minded to take these all together, obviously there are some recorded votes from earlier where people set out their positions. We will transpose those over to here for the sake of ease of administration and getting home before midnight.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just a question in terms of what this communicates to our public, and this is potentially something that could be cleaned up later on, but there's a lot of reference in there to us choosing option 2 and public excluded, and the public have no idea what option 2 is. Can the actual decisions
I think you can be confident that the clarity of the final minutes will reflect the mood of the meeting and give the public a clear understanding of what's occurred.
Thank you.
And the reason some of your stuff was in public excluded was because of the impact on people. And as you know, we hate public excluded if at all possible. So we'll try and lift as much as we can into this. And obviously you'll see that. But if you're broadly happy for now, we'll make sure that that's tidied up appropriately, Councillor Mitchell.
The change in those percentages from 5.5 down to 5.1.
Is that after all of our decisions made today? So nothing in the first few years, just the...
Well done, you haven't put them up.
Yeah. So I'll move. Is there seconder? Moving them all. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Does anyone have... Is there any debate left? Councillor Mitchell.
Oh, no, I'd just quickly like to comment that it is good to see those outer year rates figures coming down. One reason why I was asking about the Cross Valley link, it is such a significant project, and it's almost costing as much as a new 9i pool every year for 3 consecutive years. So when those figures do come out of our budget, it's going to make a noticeable difference up in there as well. But I'm quite happy for them to sit in there for now, knowing that hopefully they will come out sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just clarify? We'd already adjusted for Cross Valley connections in these numbers. If you assume
They're
that
adjusted, they're still on our budget. They're out in further years, but what I want to see is them come out of our budget, hopefully, and the impact that will make. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declare the motion carried. Okay. There's no questions. I just want to acknowledge it's been a day of considered, sincere and humane debate over a lot of issues that impact people's lives and the future of our city. And I just want to reiterate, I know that some of the positions that we were placed in were difficult, but nonetheless I think it was done in a very respectful and very dignified way. So thank you very much for that. We're just going to switch over now to the council agenda. Do I need...
Which we're hoping will be speedy.
Yes. Good game's a fast game. At 3:30 on a Friday, Mr. CEO. So we'll go to item 6, proposed joint working group on regional amalgamation options and the Wellington Regional Triennial Agreement 2025 to 28. Joe, we're in your hands.
I will speak, the papers, you've read it. I've been circulating lots of things to you in the meantime. The only, all of Wellington the region is still united. And in relation to the working party, you are in effect, would now be the last to agree. Just to say that in relation to the proposal that we put to government around simplifying local government, in fact, there's a regional response that's going in today that also accords with what you said last week. So it's been well trailed. I won't say any more, Mr. Mayor. I suppose the only thing I should say is to bring forward the TOM from this morning. All of those design principles in our TOM I expect to be taking into that regional working party to make sure that I've used the phrase that we don't want a difference between fat and skinny pigs going to market, if you know what I mean. So you can be reassured of that.
I had a question regarding recommendation 2, just the way I'm reading it, and just want some clarity if that's its intention, but basically it says agrees in principle that amalgamation is the priority response to simplifying local government. Is that us saying now we agree to amalgamation? Because if it is, I'm not that comfortable with that recommendation.
No, that's not what the report says, and it's not what everything else says before. This is a standard set of recs. What we're saying there is that you agree in principle that a regional approach to amalgamation, not the option, but working as a region, is our priority response, rather than responding to the government's view of what reorganisation should be.
I saw another council's recommendations about the same thing, and they named an alternate. I think it was for this mayoral forum. This is very important work. If our mayor can't go to the mayoral forum, do we have an alternate?
It would normally be the mayor's deputy mayor.
Okay, I'll move the motion and recommendations 1 to 10 on page 8 and 9. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is there any debate? I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, say no. Declare the motion carried. Okay. We're going back to public comment. We're going backward to go forward.
Thank you, Your Honour. Your Honour. Yeah, well, Your Worship. There we go. Yeah, upgrade. I'm speaking on behalf, or reading a document on behalf of Johannes Muller in regards to the community funding process, which is the next piece on our agenda. And he says, concerning the suggested changes of the HCC community grants process, I would like to provide some context and comments. I read the first proposal provided on HCC homepage in December of 2025, and this was the first time I'd heard of the proposed changes. I wondered whether or not HCC had been in touch with community stakeholders for feedback from any other groups and organisations, as he happens to be part of Hut Art, Petone Depot, Resley Rata Kereru Studios, and the Lower Hut Art Trail. And it turns out none of them have been approached, and there would have been a response from these groups. As a long-time volunteer in the community projects in Lower Hut region, he's been part of multiple projects involving funding applications for grants provided or facilitated by Hutt City Council, and he's been a member of the community Creative Communities Grant Panel for 6 years. He would observe over the years how Hutt City Council went from running, budgeting and facilitating local creative events, think Hutt Winter Festival, Festival of Lights, Common Ground Festival and an About Space, in collaboration with local volunteers, to a continuation of running events but contracting out special elements with a set budget, and he's been one of those contractors through his role at Learning Connection, to now leaving predominantly to volunteer community initiatives to organise, budget, run the creative cultural events in our city. It leaves and has left these initiatives to somehow find the need for funding while competing with other volunteer groups with very little planning security. Based on that development, I would assume that Hutt City Council would make it as easy as possible to get access to the limited funding and grants and to be able to support volunteer community projects in any way possible. The city's reputation and benefits a lot from these creative initiatives and events, which brings to the city and suburbs support of local business, welcomes visitors from outside the Hutt, while further developing the vibrant art scene. And on behalf of the suggested changes of the funding process, are not helpful and certainly not encouraging to the many volunteers that do the amazing work in our creative events within the Hutt City. In terms of the funding panel, specifically the applications presentation, on the topic of that funding panel, he's been on both sides of the table as an applicant and as one of the panel members, and found it important that those panel meetings were open to applicants to speak and to present supporting their project. In fact, all presenting applicants together in the same room at the same time, not just one by one, and that was a crucial part of the process. From an applicant's point of view, it's an important opportunity to witness how others present their ideas, listen and learn from it. And over the years of his work on the panel, one thing has become abundantly clear. There are rarely projects that receive full funding, which means organising volunteers need to apply to a variety of grants, trusts and potential sponsors. If Hutt City Council expects volunteers to pick up the baton of fulfilling the cultural calendar of the city, why cut these training opportunities? It's unfortunate that it didn't happen with the last grant panel meeting in November 2025, and even without informing beforehand the applicants that had signed up to present the panel and the panel members themselves. It's not exactly a good example for the council's communicating culture. Often these panels evenings were vital networking opportunities and provided different cultural backgrounds, whether it's visual arts, performing arts and heritage, and the connections and collaborations between those people. Sorry, do I have extension to keep going? Or would you like me to stop? There is a request for change, yes. In terms of the funding schedules, the combination of those two being at the same time is counterproductive. In terms of the applicants and number of applications that are received, having both of the panels combined is going to create a huge workload for anybody on those panels. Having been a panel member before, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking from my personal experience to summarize this, the amount of work that goes into just one of those panel meetings, let alone combining two of them, is significant. There's a significant amount of mental effort, preparation, and trying to combine basically 3 meetings into one is just asking for, well, in my personal opinion, poor decision making to come out, but also a poor effect on the community. It's not going to result in the timeliness that community organisations need to apply for funding, and it's not going to result in the resilience of communities being able to apply for the Creative Communities scheme, and then if they don't get it, go and applying for another format.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Nicely played, conflict of interest. Yes. My name's Johannes today. Yes. Implementing change of community funding decision-making, Andrea and Adrian.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Adrian is here to answer questions on this, and also I think she will introduce our new community funding advisor, Nathaniel, who's just started with us. But just a little bit of context. I think you will recall when this came through council, the vote was split and it was won by one vote. So there are obviously some very strong views about this topic, and so not surprising that there might be views now that we move into the process of how that's executed. I think just a reminder of the premise of this work was that over the last 5 years, when we've been looking at how we save money, one of the things that we've considered on many occasions, and sometimes we've taken, is to reduce the amount of community funding we give out to council, out to the community. And again, those votes have been very close as well. This year, what we heard from elected members was that they felt that there could be more efficient processes to how we hand out community funding. Across the funds that we have looked to merge here, they're hugely resource intensive, and sometimes disproportionately to the amount of money that's going out. And so I think ideally we would all like to have the kind of processes that we've just heard about and that we've done previously, but in reality we are spending a lot of money to get money out the door, while at the same time considering cutting the amount of money we're putting out the door. So this is a pragmatic approach to try and retain the amount of money that goes out in community funding, but make a saving by reducing the amount of resource that goes into making it happen. At the same time, maintaining the integrity of the processes wherever possible, but accepting that that won't be the same as how it was before. So that's the kind of context for this piece of work. Adrian, is there anything else you want to say about what's been put forward?
Just a couple of further points, if I may. Well, tēnā tātou. Firstly, can I just introduce our new Community Funds and Grants Advisor, Nathaniel Benefield. Started with us last week, and really, really looking forward to working with you all as we progress this important kaupapa. Just in terms of a couple of other points I wanted to make. In respect of the proposal in front of you, it's about moving from the decision that you made in December to implementation. And as Andrea said, executing. We're really asking for your approval to the panel makeup, particularly to the elected member representation on the panel, but also noting of a couple of the conversations that officers have had with our mana whenua partners and with our community board partners in terms of their participation on the panel, and just reflecting the outcome of those conversations is that we have broad support from those two community groups for what's being proposed here, and they are in the process of determining their representation. Then the other point that I would make is it's important that we do settle the panel as soon as we can in order to be able to get moving with the funding processes that are scheduled for this year, recognising that our proposal is to run this first funding round in April or May, which will require us to get that funding round open in March in order to be able to meet that time frame. So I'll happy to take any questions or open to discussion around the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. Obviously, this panel has sort of more formal terms of reference and things than some of these previous panels have. One thing I know that's always been an issue is quorum with conflicts of interest with members on these groups. What thoughts have been given to that? Looking at the writing, it kind of seems very templated, and I'm worried we're going to get to situations where a decision just can't be made.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. The terms of reference has been constructed in partnership with our Democratic Services team, so I think it represents good practice. The question that we still need to work through that has been posed, particularly by our mana whenua partners, but also by our community board partners, is that many of their members have relationships with the organisations seeking funding. So we do need to get some specialist governance advice around how best to manage that conflict.
In the quorum, it says there must be one elected member. There's only two on that panel. If it's an application from one of us on another community group, that excludes them straight away and a decision can't be made. So I'm just worried there might be situations that happen lots on the Creative Communities panel where half the people couldn't make a decision. And I just worry with saying an elected member must be one of those people. There could be situations. So.
The irony is, the more active you are in the community, the more likely you are to be conflicted. You know, if you want to just find somebody who's not involved in anything, who's truly and genuinely independent, then you could probably argue they're not qualified to be on it. You know, so it's a very subjective. You know, I have my own view. If you've got a good background in music and the performing arts, regardless, you're in a good position to make decisions. But that's just the way I've always. You know, we live in a very small country and very small. Everybody's conflicted and everybody does things in the community. So, out of all that, we have to decide: do we, between us, two representatives from the elected wing? There's been a number of you that have spoken to me and expressed interest. Can you help, Chris? This is Councillor Parkin this time, is it?
It is, and I think I've worked out what's wrong with my mic, but I'll play with it in a second. This is actually a question from a legal point of view because the conflict of interest has come up within community groups before. My understanding was as long as the quorum, i.e. the people who are there, as long as you meet the quorum, if somebody has a conflict of interest, they still count towards quorum. They just can't partake in the decision making and the discussion, but they still count towards the quorum of the meeting.
Sorry, one of the
misunderstanding of the law.
So one other point, if I may make, Mr. Mayor, through you, is that the number of representatives that we've suggested for the panel kind of reflects good practice governance. We can't get to the point where we've got too many decision makers around the table because it makes it much tougher to get the decision out. So we're sort of heading towards between a 6 and 8 number panel. And if you think about elected member representation, mana whenua representation, community boards, and then our community members as well, that kind of gets you to the 8.
Councillor Pukitapu.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I'm just looking at point 15 of the report and also another point that talks about mana whenua raising the issue of honorarium. And I know at the community board last week, the question around not necessarily paying our, but supporting those panel members did come up. So I'm just really interested in understanding whether we've had the opportunity to sort of revisit if, you know, if people are volunteering their time, what's a reciprocity approach that we can potentially put in place for that time for people who are not paid in their capacities. For example, community board members, different.
Maybe this is something I can talk to because we've had it come up a couple of times. Councils previously, there's been a bit of a mixed approach, and some people involved in some aspects of advisory groups have received some kind of compensation or travel support and those kinds of things. It's been inconsistent. I think most of the things we are proposing now, we are proposing starting from the point of no reparation because of the council's current financial situation. And I think most of them, we think the number of engagements that they've been asked to do, most of them are quarterly or less than 6 times a year. However, that is council's decision and is a budget decision if we want to add money in for that purpose.
So there's 14 of us, we need to find 2. Put your hand up if you can. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Based on today, you've got 6 months each. We'll make a decision in 2.5 years. No. So what are we going to do? Do you want to do it by consensus, or shall we do it by vote, or would they? Hey? So now we're down to 3. Thank you, Councillor Pukitapu.
Are there 2 different panels here that we're talking about? Or is it just?
Two for climate, 2 for the art creativity.
Or is it just same people?
It's the same elected members.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. So that leaves Councillor Parkin, who's no way is he conflicted, and Councillor Ravi. Are we all good? Councillor Mitchell?
Just a quick comment, because I was going to ask about the conflict piece as well, having chaired a similar committee to this in the last training, and you'll remember how it was very nuanced. People are involved in community organisations as occasional volunteers through to governance roles and all of those kinds of things, and we worked our way through that based on people's actual conflicts, and it's not an interest, it's not a conflict. I think as long as that's very clear to everyone involved from day one and kept on a register that these are the organisations you have an actual conflict and shouldn't participate in, and these ones here, your casual involvement is okay, then I think that it can be managed. The way it's written here is very blunt that you can't participate, but I think there's a bit more to it than that, and a quick chat with Brad is always a good one.
Okay, shall we move? I'll move the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Barrett. Is there any debate? I'll now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded, with Councillors Parkin and Ravi. It's updated now on the screen. And each board, yeah, and the community boards. So who, Adrian, will you work all that out? Yeah. Okay. Put that motion now, which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, say no. Declare that carried. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, could I be excused? I've got to shake a bucket for the Heart Foundation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Doing God's work.
Appreciate the explanation.
That's right. Item 8, update on local government reform. We're in the home stretch, Richard.
Kia ora koutou, kia ora Mr Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about the recent round of submissions that have gone through. I'll keep this very short because you've got the report and it's been a long day, but just wanted to acknowledge that there have been a number of submissions that this government has put through the summer period with very short consultation periods. We've made the choice to focus on some really key areas to respond back to. So you'll see that we have put in submissions on the 2 RMA reform bills and the local simplifying local government bill. We have also supported directly the feedback from Taituara on the emergency management bill and the rates capping work as well. So we are very close to this work and providing you with updates, and thank you for your feedback on simplifying local government. I'm happy to take any questions.
And there are none. Thank you, Richard. I've moved the motion that the Council notes the government is currently consulting a range of legislation change as part of a local government reform program, and 2 notice submissions provided endorsed by Council attached as Appendix 1. Do I have enough seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dyer. Is there any debate? Councillor Dyer.
Just really briefly, obviously there's been a lot of submissions lately, given what the government's been throwing out. Going forward, I'd really like us to have a working group, a submission working group. Plenty of other councils do it. Anyone that's interested can come together with officers and help formulate submissions. These all came to us quite late in the piece. Some feedback wasn't able to get there in time. So just as a matter of good process, I think going forward, it'd be really good to have a vehicle that we can use to respond to these submissions.
Thank you. I now put the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Declare that carried. Item 9, recommendation to Council from the Strategy Long-Term and Annual Plan Subcommittee meeting held today. Does anyone have a question? Do we need to put the motion up? Last one. I'm happy to move the motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Short. Any debate? Motion which has now been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declare the motion carried. I've received no questions. Just a closing karakia.